EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports as we continue to wrap up the 2025 NFL Draft. The Philadelphia Eagles were down at the White House yesterday. We'll talk a little bit about that. We got a great show planned for everybody this morning. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
Doing well. Getting through the off season, gearing up for rookie mini camp, and hopefully we can get by some of the nonsense. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, and I was a contributor in said nonsense. We will talk about that a little bit. John, I want to talk to you off the bat here. And by the way, we're going to have Ian Cummings on today. We'll have Ian Cummings in hour number 1 to break down the Eagles NFL Draft, the 10 picks that they made. Maybe he knows something about an undrafted free agent. Ian knows everything about everyone, Johnny Mac, when it comes to players. And then we'll have in hour number 2, we'll have Caden Steele. So should be a great show planned for everybody. John, I'm going to start it off with JAKIB Campbell, and we'll talk about the White House. I know everybody who's going to hear your take on that as well. But JAKIB Campbell, yesterday you put up something, a tweet that Albert Breer reported on multiple injuries to JAKIB Campbell's shoulders and knees, and he used the word plural in both accounts. What is your instant reaction or your thought process on that when you hear that? You know, I understand what he said about the Eagles are more positioned to take on that risk, but your thoughts on that when it comes to JAKIB Campbell?
Yeah, and that's what Albert was trying to say, which I've been saying for people that watch this show for years. The Eagles have the, ability, and Howie Roseman has the ability to take on more risk than most other GMs around the league. So nothing new there. Probably shouldn't have conflated Jalen Carter because people took it in all different directions. But, I wrote it's somewhat concerning, the injury. Somewhat concerning. Oh my God! You would. These people lost their freaking minds.
Well, I don't understand why that wouldn't be somewhat concerning.
How could it not be somewhat concerning? Is my question. And it's always my fault, and I do it. And all these people are muted now. So if you're listening, sorry. If you're going to be an idiot, I can't. I try to help. I mean, Albert Breer is one of the best sports reporters in the country. Now, if you listen to this show, you knew going into the draft that there was concerns around the league long before the Eagles talk, or long before I had any inkling the Eagles were going to take JAKIB Campbell. I said there's 2 first-round picks that there are concerns with. There are 2 projected first-round picks, JAKIB Campbell and Will Johnson. And what happened? Boy, that's lucky, huh? I mean, what is wrong with people?
What is your level of concern on those injuries? Because I will say this, I tend to default and believe that the Eagles medical staff does do a pretty good job at this. It doesn't mean they're perfect, and it doesn't mean it's not a concern.
First of all, and let me
what's
say
your level of concern?
First of all, the Eagles changed their medical staff because they had to last year. Nobody knows that. They changed it 3 times since winning the Super Bowl, since winning Super Bowl 52. The Chris Maragos lawsuit destroyed their relationship, and they had to get a new provider because of the insurance issues. So, again, people with no information, and this will extend to the White House, people with no information act like they have definitive knowledge of something. And even if you want to go back to some of the old medical staffs, you remember Sidney Jones? They get that one right? You remember DK Metcalf? They get that one right? In the opposite direction? This is absurd. It happens to every NFL team. But when a reporter like Albert Breer says, and I had the knowledge that there were injury concerns, he actually nailed it down to what the injury concerns were. And they're both shoulders and both knees. Now, you can go over the history both ways. Miles Jack, I say it all the time, went from a top 5 pick to second round pick because people
Right.
were concerned how long he would last. He lasted fine. DK Metcalf. Bunch of teams had him taken off the board because of a neck issue that they thought might be troublesome. He's still going strong. No one's saying it can't be positive. But the fact that this set off a bunch of Eagles fans, because I used the term somewhat concerning. Again, what do people want? Do you want real information or do you want validation? I'm lucky enough that a lot of people on this show want real information.
Yeah, people certainly do on this show.
Then I got morons saying Albert Breer made it up. What the fuck? I don't believe him. Well, why are you reading him then? If you don't want information, don't listen to this show. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but I don't give a shit from that standpoint. I don't want those people around. I'm not here to validate you. I'm not here to say, oh, there's no injury concerns with Jihad because it makes you feel better. He lasted to where he lasted because there's injury concerns. A bunch of teams don't have the hubris, whatever you call it, that's a bad word, but they don't have the confidence to take a player like that, because if they take a player like that and it goes negative, it could cost them their jobs. That's what it means to hit with a first-round pick. Howie Roseman has an ability, because of Jeffrey Lurie and because of the trust that he has built up, to take these kinds of chances. I've been saying it for years. It's a positive. But I'm not going to sit here and say, Howie was asked about the injury concerns. He was very nebulous about it. He was on, at that time, all we knew about was the shoulder, the one shoulder. But he did say long-term, we don't have a concern. Long-term, he said, specifically, which that set off my antenna, because it might be a problem short-term at the bare minimum. And that probably has more to do with the labrum surgery than anything else. But if there are degenerative issues with the other shoulder and the knees, it could be a problem. It's somewhat concerning.
Yeah, and I think anybody rational would see why that would be somewhat concerning.
Okay.
What is your level of concern? Because I do think that's interesting intel, what you just gave about the medical staff. A most recent draft pick I'd point to would be like Landon Dickerson. He came out with a lot of injuries, and obviously it's worked out there. So I do understand the instances you said as well. But what is your level of concern on the Jihad Campbell injuries?
It's somewhat concerning. I mean, again, can it be Landon Dickerson? You're right. Landon Dickerson would have been a first-round pick had he not torn his ACL in the SEC championship game, and he tore his ACLs twice. So if he didn't do that, he would have been a first-round pick. The Eagles were confident enough to take him. They thought it was going to be longer term, and Howie's words with Jihad, than it ended up being. It was kind of forced into the lineup because of injuries, and it's worked out well. Again, Sidney Jones has not worked out well. There's ones that work out. There's ones that don't work out.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of teams that looked at Jihad Campbell, who was, you saw most mock draft projections, potential top 15 pick. There's some teams that passed over him because of injury concerns. Doesn't make them right, but it happened. Will Johnson went, 47 because of injury concerns. Doesn't make it right. He might turn into be the best cornerback in the draft. But if he didn't have those injury concerns, he probably would have been the top corner selected. I mean, why is this even a thing? Other than a certain group of people want to stick their head in the sand and say, oh, I don't believe that. I can't believe that. It's childish.
Any information, John, on when you think Jihad Campbell will be on the field for the Eagles? Will it be a missed training camp? Is it a missed preseason? Is it no concern at all, and he'll be ready to go pretty soon? Like, what's the timeline look like?
Surgery in March. He's not going to be out there for a while. He's not going to be out there in the OTAs. He's not going to, other than sitting and watching. He's going to, it's generally a 6 to 12-month injury, which is a wide range, but people are different. So, I don't know why, because he didn't want to talk about it that much. He was asked about it. Howie was asked about it. But which is one of the things about, I'm not even getting to how the Eagles are going to use them, which is going to be certainly more layered than a traditional off-ball linebacker. Not even getting into that, but the assumption that, he'll start week 1 while Makuba gets ready. He might not be ready for week 1. So, but long term, what Howie said, long term, the Eagles don't have concerns. Short term, there's some, if you're,
Right.
but I said that doesn't matter.
Smile Monday, baby. Get ready to rumble.
Well, Jeremiah Trotter, get ready to rumble, but
both of them.
Yeah, I mean, the goal isn't. Cooper DeJean didn't get out there to week 5 as a starter because he had a hamstring issue. It's not the end of the world if he's not ready week 1. It's the end of the world if degenerative issues derail the pick, and even that, it's not. As Albert pointed out, the Eagles are in a position to take a chance that other people aren't. If it doesn't work out, they'll just turn the page and move on. It's not going to be crippling. That's the position they're in, and that's a positive. But, I mean, if you don't want information, I don't even understand those people. I don't. They want validation.
They want information. I mean, Twitter's a cesspool with everything like that, and I'm assuming that's where you're getting a lot of that from. Most people here, I believe, want information, and that's why we have such a good fan base, and we've had it for 4 years. So I don't think you got to change anything, John, from that perspective. John, I do want to ask you about the White House. The Birds went to the White House yesterday. What did you think of their trip down to the South Lawn to celebrate their Super Bowl victory publicly on a world stage?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I wish people would, there's very few, the Easter egg hunt, the turkey ceremony, which they pardon the turkey, and celebrating sports teams championships are supposed to be, those are the 3 I can think about that are supposed to be nonpartisan.
Right.
Now, even if you talk about, because of the world we live in, even the Easter egg hunt, people will bring up religion. Well, why this religion? Why not this religion? And turkey hunt. Well, you got the PETA people. Shouldn't be everything.
You always got to placate to somebody, John. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. I wish we can get back to the time. I wish the entire team could have enjoyed it because it's pretty freaking cool, to be honest. But I don't have a problem with anyone. I supported Saquon Barkley yesterday. I'll support Jalen Hurts and everybody else today. I don't have a problem. Other than on a personal level, I feel sad on a certain level that a bunch of guys who earned and what they did and earned that honor didn't get a chance to enjoy it because, to be honest, pressure from others and this stupid childish litmus test. Oh, you can go if this guy's president. You can't go if this guy's president. Similar, and this is where I'll put the 2 together, Gia. Grow the fuck up. Everybody doesn't have to agree with you. Both sides of the aisle. In fact,
do you think at all there's any leadership mistake element for Jalen Hurts? Not other players on the team. I think everybody's entitled to make their decision. I happen to think that Jalen, as the leader of the team, has a different set of responsibilities. And when your team gets honored on a world stage, I would have liked to have seen Jalen Hurts up there. It has nothing to do with the politics. I'm not mad at Jalen Carter, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, for all those guys for skipping. I think Jalen, as the leader, should have been there. Do you believe it was a leadership mistake at all for Jalen Hurts?
No, no, I don't. When I talk about football players, and look, this game is very important to me, to people that cover the league, to people that follow the league, certainly to the players themselves. In the real world, it's meaningless. When I talk about football and I talk about leadership from a football sense, I'm talking about football situations. I think one of the problems we're in is people think celebrities should chime in about political issues. First of all, they don't have not everybody. There's a few that engage and try to get educated about certain subjects, but the vast majority don't give a shit about politics. They don't have the expertise to talk about politics. So that's on you if you're a viewer and you expect certain players to lean in a certain direction because of your own personal twisted politics, which again, 90% of the time, similar to Campbell, that's how I tied the two together. You have no damn information. So from a standpoint, is Jalen Hurts a leader from a football standpoint? Yes. I have no questions about Jalen Hurts as a leader of this football team. And that's all
I
I
don't
care
question
about.
him as a leader, but I think this was one instance where I disagreed with his style of leadership. That's all.
Yeah, well,
I don't think that makes him a bad leader, though. You know, I put out one thing. And
I'm
you
saying
think he's a bad? I'm like, I don't think he's a bad leader. I thought this was one instance that he could have stood with the dudes who did decide to go, you know, on a public stage.
I'm saying I don't care about anybody on that football team and their opinion on any issue outside football. So is he a leader in the building? Is he a leader on the field? Other than being, you know, and people conflate that. That's one issue I've never had with Jalen Hurts, other than he's a human being. He's not perfect. You know, and people want to, you know, hold him up to that standard. Again, the validation people who get upset when you criticize, you know, poor play or what's going on from that circumstance, or, you know, what's going on with you know, being closed sort of about certain issues and things like that. You know, as long as it involves football, it's open season for me. I don't care. I don't care. Look, these guys are under tremendous pressure because they are public figures. And you saw what happened with Saquon and him getting shit on all over the place. Saquon Barkley, 2,504 yards, offensive player of the year, still getting shit on because of a decision about a nonpartisan event at the White House. So on the other end of the spectrum, you know, Jalen Hurts and his status as one of Time's most influential people, and he's on all these magazines and all these endorsements, and then he's going to get shit on by the other side.
Yeah, but it's not a side to me. It has nothing to do with sides. If Jalen Carter,
I'm not talking about you personally, but surely you see the larger picture.
I mean, I got lumped in with that because I said I would have liked to have seen Jalen Hurts.
Everybody gets lumped in with it.
Right.
Because you're dealing with a bunch of morons, to be honest. So I don't have any problem with any football player who doesn't want to delve into the cesspool of politics, no matter what side it is. None. I don't care. Saquon wants to play golf with the president, and I'll tell you, if Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Barack Obama or George Bush or anybody else invited me on Air Force One, I'm going. Yeah, I'll take a ride. I think it's pretty cool. Doesn't extend to politics to me, but it extends to politics to most people. And, you know, those people are childish and they need to grow up, because everything in life isn't a litmus test for your personal belief system. And too many people think it is. And thankfully, this will go away in 48 hours because those people will be on to the next thing to get angry about, because they're perpetually angry. So thankfully, it'll be a short shelf life.
It will certainly be a short shelf life. It'll be a short shelf life here on this show because we got the great Ian Cummings coming up next here on Barrett's 365. He's going to break down the Eagles NFL draft class for us. All right, they got 10 new players, plenty of good ones. They got JAKIB Campbell round one, obviously Andrew Makuba. We're going to talk to our guy Ian Cummings. He's joining us now here on Barrett's 365. The draft expert joins us from Pro Football Network. Follow him on Twitter at IC_draft. Ian, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Tuesday morning post NFL draft? I'm sure it was a long grind for you getting through that process.
Yeah, post NFL draft is the key word there because it was definitely a grind. Happy to get through it. Every year, you total under 10 hours of sleep through that 3-day stretch, right? So it's good to get through it. It's good to get on the other side. Man. And, we're already kind of turning the page to 2026, behind the scenes, getting the big board set up and everything and getting the early observations. But a lot of excitement with the 2025 class. I think overall, there weren't too many team classes where I was like, I'm not sure about that. I think there's a lot of potential energy for every team and for the Eagles trying to get the repeat. So I think they scored value, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job getting trait space. How we talked about what you're trying to do on day 3, try to find somebody who's got an NFL trait and sort of build on it. I think they did a good job. But, I have concerns on day 1 and day 2 with the Eagles pick. So we'll start there, Ian. JAKIB Campbell, I know, there's injury concerns. I mean, that's a tremendous value if there isn't injury concerns. But they also have the aspect of, looks like they evaluate him a little bit differently than most people who evaluate him as a typical all-ball stacked linebacker. Looks like the Eagles want more of the, and I call it the Andrew Van Ginkel role with Big Fangio in Miami. They want to turn him into part edge rusher, part all-ball linebacker, part flat defender, all these different things. Very versatile player. Do you think from a personal standpoint, do you think he has that kind of skill set if he is healthy?
I think to a degree, for sure. I think he was a former edge recruit coming into college, right? So I think he, in high school, he had that experience, and then they moved him to off-ball linebacker at the collegiate level. And there he kind of showed what he could do in space, the gap instincts, the ability to go sideline to sideline, the ability to play in coverage as well. One of the best coverage linebackers in the class, I think, with the ability to either drop in Tampa 2 or man up big slot wide receivers and tight ends. So a really versatile player is what you're getting, right? And so I would say to that role projection, I wouldn't want him to be an edge full time, right? Because 6'3", 235, he's definitely a little lighter for the position, and that would show up if he was asked to be an edge setter, right? So on early downs, maybe you're looking for him to play from depth at the off-ball spot and just kind of knife downhill with that long strider speed and that elite range. Like I don't want to, that's not hyperbole. He has some of the best range of any linebacker the past 5 years. So, when it's run defense, I think you let him start off in space and use that range. But then as a pass rusher on those obvious passing downs, I think that's when you can let him pin his ears back, either from, wide 9-7 tech or blitzing up the A gap or the B gap. I think he's got the burst, he's got the bend, and there is a semblance of hand usage ability too with that edge background. So there's a ton of versatility, right? How you use it is going to be the key puzzle in this discussion. But I mean, there's no defensive coordinator that I'd rather have him, play under than Vic Fangio in that regard, because I think Vic Fangio has proven that he has a scheme and a system that's worked for him for a long time, but he's also willing to mold roles within that system based on the talent that he has. And JAKIB Campbell is a universal talent. I mean, he can rush in certain situations, mainly one-on-one, right? But he's got the speed, the burst, the men to create angle advantages. He can play in coverage. He can gash downhill and run defense. The one thing that I wanted to keep improving, and this is probably another reason why I don't really like him as a full-time edge. So I wouldn't, I'd want to limit his early down snaps there, because his play strength, his take-on technique against run blocks can still improve. That's still kind of a part of his game that's underdeveloped, but everywhere else, as long as he's healthy, right? That's the key. I think he's an absolute chess piece for you. And I think Vic Fangio is going to have a lot of fun thinking of ways to work him into the defense.
Yeah, versatility can be a great thing. And there is also a line of thinking where it's like, jack of all trades, master of none, and I think a lot of Eagles fans are hoping that this guy can get after the quarterback using a first-round draft pick on him. How well do you see his skill set, his traits translating over to the NFL as an edge, as getting after the quarterback, not as an off-ball linebacker?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, well, the beauty of getting after the quarterback is a player like him can do it a variety of ways. You know, he's not a guy who's just going to be rushing from wide nine. Like
Right.
he can certainly do that. But I think, and getting Ty Robinson on day 3, in my opinion, was really important for this because I think he helps improve the depth of the defensive line unit, and he's also got some alignment versatility too, where he can play 3 tech, 5 tech. So I think now that you have a deep enough interior line, JAKIB Campbell is the type of pass rusher that you can move around across the front, right? If you rotate him down to wide 9, you know, so theoretically you got to tackle. Imagine that you had a tight end outside the tackle, right? JAKIB Campbell would be on that tight end's outside shoulder. That's how wide he is in 9 technique. And from 9 technique, that's great because he's a runway to use that elite explosiveness and speed to just get an angle around the apex, right? And then he's got the bend capacity, the angle flexion to reduce his surface area, get underneath while sustaining that acceleration. And then his pursuit speed, his closing ability on the quarterback in pursuit is just incredible too. Like he's a guy who will force fumbles, he'll generate turnovers. I mean, whatever you need this guy to do, when he has that runway to be a playmaker and to just pin his ears back and go 100 miles an hour, that's when you can really thrive. But at the same time, like, yeah, that's more of a pure pass rusher role, but you can also do simulated pressures and you know, feigned coverages with him. You can have him look like he's going to drop and then blitz from depth, you know, and just sear up the A gap. Again,
Right.
he's got the speed and the bend to do that. He proved that he could do that at the collegiate level. And you can also have him look like he's going to blitz and then drop into coverage, right? So it's not just about pass rush, right? He's obviously, I think he can be a very dynamic and versatile pass rusher for you. But in the passing phase, I think an even more important element of it is playing with what the QB sees pre-snap, right? And I think JAKIB Campbell is the perfect linebacker for that because, again, if you need him to feign the blitz, drop into coverage, he can do that. If you need him to, you know, generate pressure even from depth, some guys don't have the speed to do that. He does. So there are a lot of different ways you can use him. I wouldn't confine him to a pure pass rushing role. Like, hey, you're going to be at 9 tech on all of these snaps, right? Obviously, you have certain packages, but
So
I
you
think
don't see like a Micah Parsons type future. You see
not.
more of that Van Ginkel, different usage with things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think Micah Parsons coming out, I think the play strength was a little bit superior with him. You know, I think he had a little bit more compact mass in his frame. And I do think JAKIB Campbell can add to that. But I think the beauty of what Campbell has to offer, right? I don't think he's going to be quite that elite pass rushing element that Parsons was coming out. But I do think he's a player who can disguise your intent on any given down. And I think Vic Fangio in particular is going to love what he can do with that. So you got to be creative with him. But if you can be creative and Fangio can, the sky's the limit.
Yeah,
Sounds like a Fangio player.
Yeah, sounds a lot like Andrew Van Ginkel. So I think that's the Eagles' projection. I think that's been lost in the sauce for many because most, and it's understandable, but after listening to Howie talk, I mean, they project him as more than an off-ball linebacker. It's just how much more, I guess, is what we're going to see
For sure.
over the years. Round 2, Ian, another potential size issue as I look at it. And from this perspective with Andrew Makuba from Texas, the safety, you know, he looks like a missile to me and he plays like he's 210 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's 184, 185 pounds. I went through this here with Philadelphia with the Eagles with Avonte Maddox. He's a very physical player when he was here, but tremendously undersized. And he get hurt a lot because he's taking on NFL players and he's playing like he's 20, 25 pounds heavier. I get that feel. Is Makuba a little bit too undersized in your mind to be a full-time safety at this stage?
I don't necessarily think so because there are some roles of the safety unit that don't call for as much physicality on a down-to-down basis, and I think that he can play some. So I think I would word it like this. I think his weight is probably the biggest red flag on his profile, right? You know, he played at the collegiate level at 185 pounds. I think I saw a report that he was up to 190. We'll see if he can bulk up a little bit, right? You know, NFL training programs are good for that, and I do think he can add a little bit more compact mass to his frame. I don't think he's maxed out quite yet. So that'll be the key to look at that. But I think with Andrew Makuba, again, you know, he's an absolute Swiss Army knife on the back end, and he can play single high if you need him to. He can play 2 high. You know, he can come into the box and enforce a little bit, like you said. And I think that, you know, at the collegiate level, at least, right, it's difficult to project injuries because it can be a big wild card for a lot of guys. Like there are some guys who have injury issues at the collegiate level and then go on to be absolute Ironmen at the NFL level, right? And there are guys that have a clean bill of health and then injuries end up taking hold and kind of, off-railing their NFL career. So it's really difficult to predict. There's a lot of entropy in the process and just bad luck that goes into it, which is unfortunate. But, I think Andrew Makuba, for his credit, injuries were not a nagging issue at the collegiate level. Even with how physical he played, he still managed to stay available. So I would take that as a small point of solace for him. Now, he's definitely got to bulk up the frame a little bit. But you talk about a guy who can play single high. I think, one of the main appeals of his profile is that he's going to, not only is he going to be physical and enforce downhill, but he's going to, dissuade quarterbacks from making throws just in general, because his coverage mobility is incredible. I'm one of the most fluid, malleable athletes that I've watched in my time scouting. And that's not an exaggeration. He's so fluid and so, free flowing when it comes to really sharp transitions in space and syncing. And, not just that, but the reactionary athleticism, the ability to really, instinctively process route concepts and, flip his hips in tandem. His hips and his feet and his mind all move at the same speed. And it's really exciting to watch because you have a guy who is an absolute safety blanket on the back end. He's got the range to make plays on the ball, but I just think occluding those passing windows and just doing his job on the back end, like there are some throws that if you've got a deep post, Andrew Makuba is going to process that. He's going to get in the receiver's hip pocket, and that QB is not going to want to make that throw as much, right? So it won't be the only role that he's playing, obviously, but I think his value goes beyond the simple enforcer role. I think you have a guy who really completes your secondary as long as he can stay healthy, bulk up a little bit more. That definitely is a red flag for him. But for me, it's one that I'm willing to not look past, but willing to take a chance on him regardless, because one, he did hold up at the collegiate level, and two, he's so talented and versatile outside of that.
How'd you have him graded out with the other safeties? Kevin Winston Jr. was still on the board when they took him. Xavier Watts was still on the board when they took him. How did you have Makuba ranked, in your safeties coming into the draft?
Yeah, so he was my safety too, actually, behind Malachi Starks. So I was a big fan of him. I've, ever since his Clemson days.
Even over Emin Wari.
Yeah, yep. Emin Wari, to me, the athleticism was there, but I had concerns about his processing and diagnosis and run support. So I was kind of like, for a bigger guy, I thought he needed to be a lot more consistent in that phase. So I think Makuba, definitely a smaller, lighter guy, but dating back to the Clemson days, I just, it sounds really simplistic, but like looking at how he moves different. I mean, twitchy, fluid, malleable, to the S tier, in each of those categories. And then you look at the processing ability that he has. He's such a natural, intelligent, high IQ player on the back end when it comes to recognizing where the offense is going and where it needs to be, understanding his relationship to the routes, but also his teammates, just a really fundamentally sound player who also has the athletic coverage upside that you want, the playmaking ability. So yeah, he was my safety too.
And to be clear, Ian, I want to be clear for the people. Howie played up everything you just said, his tremendous ability in space as a coverage player. And that was, my concern, because he plays so physical that, at times when you do come up and run support and, plays a lot like Sidney Brown, he's like a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
I think that might be an issue, but from a coverage standpoint and a space standpoint, that's what the Eagles were looking for, and I think that's what the Eagles got. And I think you explained that well. Day 3, you already mentioned him a little bit, Ty Robinson. Getting to meet these guys, and boy, I rarely am I impressed by a prospect more than Ty Robinson. He's pre-med. He's got 19 credits at one point. He's playing high-level football in Nebraska. I mean, this kid is just a worker. If he does fail, it's not going to be because of a lack of work ethic or anything of that nature. What do you like about him most as a player? The versatility?
Yeah, that's probably up there. I think being 6'5", around 290, 32-inch arms, plays a little bit taller than most of your 3 techs, 5 techs, what have you. So I think that'll be something to keep improving. But for his size, I think the leverage acquisition is pretty solid. And one, he's so explosive at that size. I mean, he can get in the backfield in the blink of an eye, you know, whether you need him to penetrate up gaps or reset the line and run defense. He's so explosive. He's generating so much momentum and force into contact that guards virtually can't displace him, right? You know, he's a guy who is going to beat down blocks and base blocks with ease because of that explosive capacity and that physicality at the point. But then he has some versatility as a pass rusher. You know, he can rush from 3 tech, he can rush from 5 tech. There are even some reps rushing outside that a little bit, right? I'd keep him in the 3 to 5 window, but I think you do have some inherent versatility with how you can use him and just that explosive capacity that allows him to, again, generate force, reset contact, but then also if he's a pass rusher, like he's got really good ankle flexion and lower body flexibility too. So he can get upfield and get a step on guys, up gaps, and then bend inside and enter pursuit too. So that flexibility helps him a lot as a finisher, which he showed with his production in his final year at Nebraska. So really fun player. I think, you know, be alongside Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, he really complements them well because you have a guy who's that explosive, you know, penetrator, you know, force generator who can really do whatever you need him to in either phase. You know, he's a little bit lighter in the run game, so you want to make sure that the pad level gets honed down. You don't want him to be drifting too tall because then guys can get, you know, forklift underneath him and drive him out of gaps. But aside from that, I think he's so explosive, you know, and he's a pretty intelligent player, experienced too. So, you know, he just provides a lot of, you know, a pretty complete picture, a complete skill set at the defensive tackle class, despite being a little bit undersized. So I had a top 100 grade on him too. So that was another one where I was like, the Eagles got pretty impressive value there, but they also had a need with standing there. You know, I think Moro Ajomo, I was a big fan of Ajomo coming out as a prospect, and he did show some good stuff down the stretch in the playoffs.
Yeah, he showed some great stuff last year.
Yeah, but I think you needed one more guy in that rotation. And Ty Robinson, in my opinion, is as good a guy they could have added at that point.
Yeah, you lost Milton Williams. You think Ty Robinson is a year 1 contributor on that defensive line, Ian?
I think pretty early. Yeah, I think there may be a small acclimation period with the size and the taller frame. You know, he's going to have to learn that you really got to get your base beneath you in the NFL, because these guys, if you make a mistake, they're going to capitalize. It's not like the collegiate level where an imperfect rep can get the win. Right. So his build is a little unorthodox. I think he's going to have to learn how to manage that, but he's so athletic and so explosive too. And he's got a hot motor. I mean, he comes out with 100% physicality on every rep. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. You might see him a little bit slower to kind of churn up earlier in the year, but I think there's so much talent on that line too, and he's in a great defense where they can put him in a position to succeed. I'm not too worried about it. I think by, you know, the midpoint of the season, he'll start to catch his stride and you'll see some really good things from him.
There's one guy, Ian, I can't get a beat on. I don't know what the feel about him, so I need your help, and that's McWilliams. You know, where are you with this prospect? Seems like most people are projecting him inside as a slot corner.
Yeah.
I see everything else in this draft pretty clearly, at least from the Eagles' standpoint, what they want. Not so sure with McWilliams. What do you think about him?
Yeah, so he's a guy who has some of that two-phase playmaking ability, right? And I think he can play nickel, he can play boundary as well, which is a really fun aspect of his game. And I think, you know, 5'10", 185 around there. So it doesn't quite have the size profile that they've been coveting from guys, at least in recent years. But that's, I think, why they would project him into the slot, because mainly their boundary guys are a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, right? So I think McWilliams has the build and the athletic makeup that you want, but the ability to, again, convert at the catch point for his size and then also make plays coming downhill. I mean, this is a guy who has a really fast play pace, and he can process, he can get downhill. He had 7 tackles for loss in 2024. But then at the same time, too, I think go back to 2022, he had 10 pass deflections too. So he's proven that he can make plays, be it at the catch point or, you know, crashing downhill and, you know, engaging blocks, making tackles. So, you know, I think at his size, again, there's going to be a little bit of an acclimation period, but the vision was pretty clear for me. He was, you know, not a guy that was heavily on my radar. I did watch a little bit of him, but I didn't know if he was going to get drafted or not. But once you get to that day 3 range, there are a lot of, you know, under the radar nickel guys who project pretty well, who were kind of slept on throughout the process. And McWilliams to me kind of fits that bill. You know, I think the Eagles were pretty savvy to have him on their radar. And, you know, with the athleticism, the two-phase playmaking ability, I do think that he can factor in the rotation. Is it going to be a starter? I don't know right away, but I do think at the very least his quality depth for you with that playmaking propensity.
Certainly seems like there's a theme with these defensive players drafted by the Eagles. So, betting on those traits, that high upside. Talk to me about Smile Munden, Ian Cummings. Where'd you have him rated out there as an off-ball linebacker? Another Georgia Bulldog coming to Philly. What do you think of Smile Munden? How'd you have him ranked?
Yeah, so he was actually a top 100 player for me too. So like the Eagles, it's
I
like
love Smile Munden.
it's like
I
a
love
best
him.
hits of value, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But Smile Munden, I think around 6'2.5", I want to say around 230, maybe a tad lighter, 228 to 229 at the combine, but I think he'd get up to 235. He's a really fun player, man. I mean, former 5-star recruit. He's got the athleticism that you want, but he was a defensive back recruit coming out of high school. So, I think with JAKIB Campbell, you're getting the versatility. I think Smile Munden is kind of, I wouldn't put them in the same category as prospects, but I do think there's a lot of athleticism and versatility that carry over for both guys. Smile Munden is one of the best athletes in the class when it comes to, again, being a little bit light, a little undersized, but he's explosive and he's really, really fluid. I mean, watching his coverage tape, I'd say probably the two of the top linebackers in the class in coverage. If I had to put together a top three, JAKIB Campbell and Smile Munden would be two of the top three coverage linebackers in the class. I mean, Smile Munden is so good at, again, reducing, planning, and driving. He looks like a safety out there sometimes, playing off man against those tight ends on those out routes where he can just, plant and drive, click and close, and just make a play at the contact point. But then at the same time, too, in run defense, his take on technique is pretty good. Obviously, he's not going to be elite in that area yet, being under 230 pounds. He's definitely got to add a little bit more mass to his frame, but I do really like how he acquires leverage with his base, how he uses his length to anchor blocks and kind of set the line. And then he's pretty good at engaging at the second level too. So he needs to improve the play strength a little bit, but I was a big fan of him coming out. I think probably right out of the gate, a really good sub package linebacker in those coverage looks. Where he can play in zone or he can man up a guy in the slot if you need him to as an overhang linebacker against a big nickel. I think he does legitimately have that safety-esque coverage ability at his size, and he's so athletic. It kind of serves as a fail-safe for him. And then you kind of look at how he played at the Georgia defense. This guy was a veteran presence. I mean, he was really good at doing his job, but also getting teammates in position when he needed to. And they have CJ Allen, they had Jalen Walker. So they were really talented, really smart linebacking group. And Mondin was a big part of that. So he was the top 100 player for me. I don't know if he starts, but then again, JAKIB Campbell won't be available right away with the torn labrum. So I could see Smile Munden getting some meaningful reps early on because of that. I think it's going to be mainly in the coverage aspect, but if he can bulk up a little bit, I think if his play strength translates, then you could be looking at a gem in this class.
All right, Ian, I want to get through all these players with you. I'm being a homer here because 168 and 181. I love the value. Howie Roseman called this a center deficient league. The Eagles don't even need a center, one of the few teams. And they get Drew Kendall. This son of Pete Kendall is a really good offensive lineman for years, former first-round pick. I broke my own rule, was a first-round pick. Kyle McCord, quarterback from Syracuse. If I was looking for a quarterback on day 3, he'd be near the top of my list. Not that these guys are going to be starters in Philadelphia, because they're not, but I could see them as starters down the road in the NFL. Your thoughts on that potential pairing? Maybe they're playing center and quarterback somewhere else together down the road.
Yeah, potentially. With Kyle McCord, I kind of had him pinpointed as a really good backup candidate on day 3. I think with him, you've got a good arm, right? He was obviously a pretty highly touted recruit before he came to Ohio State, and then he transferred to Syracuse and lit the league up. I mean, he really took advantage of that opportunity and kind of proved that he was worth, a draft pick, that he was worth consideration there. So I don't know if McCord will ever be a starter. I just, looking at the athletic profile, he doesn't give me as much as I would want athletically. As a creator, you're not working with a ton, right? And I think as a processor, he was really good in that Syracuse offense where it was a lot of, first and second reads, not too many full field progressions, which again, I think full field progressions.
That's college football though.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to say it's overrated in the evaluative spectrum because but I will say, you don't need a full field progression to see processing ability all the time. I think sometimes simple pre-snap reads, understanding where to go with the ball, seeing defensive formations, that can have an effect too. So, we kind of get kind of binary with, full field progressions or not, but it's not that simple as a processing evaluation. And I do think when it comes to pre-snap, knowing where to go with the ball, getting it out quickly, understanding DB leverage, and how to place the ball with accuracy too, I think McCord really improved at that over the tail end of his career, right? So, you look at the Eagles, they have Tanner McKee as well, who profiles pretty well as a backup in the short term. So, it wasn't a pick that they needed to make, but I think adding depth to the QB room is never a bad thing. And Kyle McCord, in my opinion, has enough of the processing ability, improved his accuracy, has a good arm too. Athletically, he's never going to be that creator where I'm going to say he'll elevate a unit at all. But, backup, potential spot starter down the line, he adds depth to the unit.
Yeah. And by the way, when I said, hey, I'm talking like bottom 10 starter, I'm with you. He doesn't have the upside. I'm a little bit higher on, but I'm talking bottom of the league. There's never 32 great quarterbacks in the NFL.
And, that's the thing, is just like improving the depth and the security. So if someone else does have to go in, you have someone who understands the scheme because he's been brought up in it. So I think, drafting QBs this stage is never a bad thing. And if there's anyone to draft, like you said, I think Kyle McCord is a guy who really proved that he was worth it this past year. Again, decent processor, decent accuracy, good arm, toughness as well. So all of those things lend well to at least being a backup security blanket role. Drew Kendall, real quick, 6'4", 308. I think he ran in the 5-second range, 40-yard dash, which again, those tests aren't all too translatable at the NFL level, 1-to-1, but it does give you an idea of his athleticism. I think he had a 1.79 10-yard split, so close to that 1.77 threshold that, is kind of pinpointed for potential starters. He's pretty explosive off the line. He's a pretty free-flowing mover at his size, not an overly powerful guy. Not a guy who's going to outmatch defenders one-on-one all the time, right? Not a guy who's going to fight through nose tackles all the time, but I think just a really solid fundamental player. I think he does a pretty good job acquiring leverage. He's got pretty good natural leverage with his pad level, right? But then he's got some dense compact mass too. He can play square. He's got the footwork to keep guys inside his frame. And, I think that experience, that athleticism, those two things will underpin his game and help him be a quality backup to Cam Jurgens. So, I don't know if he'll be, maybe you could potentially get a comp pick for him down the line if he has to start a little bit and proves himself, does well enough. I think he was one of those centers in this class who had distant starting potential for sure, right? I think he's got to learn to be more of a displacer at times. The power element does need to improve in his game a little bit, but he's athletic, well-rounded, and he's got experience. I think those things bode well for a backup.
Ian, round 6, pick 209. I liked this pick because I just felt like 25.5 sacks in 2 years. You got to be able to do something. Talk to me about him. Antoine Powell Ryland from Virginia Tech, the Eagles' final pick in the draft. I know there's 2 tackles in there in between McCord and Powell Ryland, but I was fascinated with this prospect because of just the sheer amount of production he had at college. Do you think that can translate over to the NFL at all? I know it's a 6th-round pick, so obviously it's a little bit of a dart throw, but I think it's a worthy dart throw at that. What do you see there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was a worthy dart throw too. And I think you're probably looking at a DPR, a designated pass rush specialist, because when it comes to his frame, I think it was around 6'2.5", 258 pounds, 31-inch arms. That's the key. That's the trouble right there, right? Not having super long arms. There are times when he can get outreached, especially in the run game, right? So I think Antoine Powell Ryland, your best bet is him just being that wide 9 designated pass rusher where he can work with a runway and just kind of terrorize tackles, either with that speed to power, because he does have legitimate speed to power, but then also working around the apex too, because I think he's explosive enough. He had a 36-inch vertical, 10.4 broad jump, 4.69 40 as well with a 1.64 10-yard split. So reasonably explosive, reasonably fast, not a guy who's going to outreach guys, not a guy who's going to dictate the point in run defense, but a player who has a hot motor in the pass rush phase, has a pretty good bag of moves too. But then I think the important thing, the speed to power, even though he's not the longest guy, He's an energized accelerator where he can build up speed with his lower body. He's got great compact mass, and he can drive through guys, kind of attack inside the torso or work the outside shoulder. I think he can do both those things too. So might be limited to that DPR role, but within that role, I think he's a great add to the rotation, and he gives you a little bit more dynamic ability when it matters most. When that other team is pressured to make a play in the passing game and you want to make the QB uncomfortable, Powell Ryland is a guy who can do that ultimately. So I like the pick a lot. I like the value. I think it's a good confluence of value and talent.
With Powell Ryland, because a lot of Eagles fans are very excited about him because of the college production. So, from a scouting perspective, can you kind of educate the people as far as how you parse out, in other words, why is a guy so productive at a Power 5 school in the 6th round of the NFL draft?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is having the two-phase upside, right? Run defense and pass defense. And especially, lately in the NFL, we're seeing a lot of, too high, teams have to be able to withstand against the run with less personnel. If you can do that, you can be more versatile with your coverage unit and on the back end, right? So, I'll give an example for this class in particular. The San Francisco 49ers, their first round pick was McWilliams. Their second round pick was Alfred Collins, a nose tackle and an edge defender who translates really well against the run. And I think what we're seeing with this too high evolution is that, yeah, you can do odd fronts and all that, but like if you can dissuade the offense from running the ball or, limit their ability to run the ball efficiently with less personnel, that gives you more flexibility. You can do more nickel looks, right? So I think Antoine Powell Ryland, you look at a guy like that, right? Really productive pass rusher, but does he have the run defense profile to hold up on a down-to-down basis? With the lacking length, that's a struggle for me. And it does show up at times on tape where other guys can outreach him and drive him out of the play because they can extend, they can anchor, and it's really tough to break through that, right? So I think that's where it comes in, is that one, the run defense utility. And then two, I do think he's very athletic. I don't think he's quite an elite athlete for his size as well. I think he has great explosiveness, but again, not hitting that elite threshold, being,
Right.
a little bit stiff at times with the denser frame, just little details that kind of, act as separators. And again, a 6th round pick can become a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick very easily if they just add one little thing to their game, right? So there's a lot of variance with each team's board, but I would say the run defense, the uncertain run defense projection hurts him a little bit because that confines him a little bit, but then also not having quite the elite pass rush upside at the NFL level. I think he can be a very good DPR, but again, there are some minute limitations that do detract from that a little bit.
And the last one, Ian, Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams. I think the process here, the Eagles want one of the two to hit. Miles Hinton, the son of Chris Hinton, because I'm old, one of the greatest offensive linemen I've ever seen. So he's got those genetics. Cameron Williams, 1 year. A lot of people think if he went back, he could have, really went up the draft board. Your thoughts on those two players and their potential?
Yeah, so I'll start with Miles Hinton because I wasn't sure he was going to be drafted, but I think he entered the exact right situation. And looking at the video of Jeff Stoutland calling him, like, it seems like they're excited to work with him too. So I'm kind of excited to see what they envision there. I think the Eagles have always been a little bit more willing to test the waters with bigger offensive guards. Some teams, if a guy gets past a certain size threshold, it's like, all right, we'll stick him at tackle. But the Eagles are willing to play around with big guards. And you look at Miles Hinton, 6'7".
Becton,
Yeah, Mekhi Becton as well. So like 6'7", 323, 34-inch arms, had a 31.5-inch vertical, pretty explosive on the linear plane. I think he's a little plodding and heavy-footed when it comes to lateral mobility, but that's why moving him into a phone booth at guard, I think, is more appealing for him. I think he can really outmatch guys with his physical tools and his size. He's got pretty good physicality as well. So, I kind of eyed him as more of a developmental player, right? But I think moving him inside to guard and letting him work with Jeff Stoutland, you could get a value deal here. I really think that. I think the power profile is there. The size, again, can outmatch guys, and there's a lot to work with. I think Cameron Williams, kind of a similar idea, a developmental player. If he had stayed in school and refined his game a little bit more, we might have been talking about him as the top 100 pick next year. So coming out early wasn't the best thing for him. But I think it was kind of a silver lining, a blessing in disguise, because again, he lands with the Eagles and Jeff Stoutland,
Right.
and he can be taught by them too. He's a very athletic player. Again, I think for his size, being around 6'6", the playing weight is probably over 330, right? And he's pretty fleet-footed for his size. I mean, when I was watching him in pass protection, I thought he got great depth on his kick. I thought he had enough foot speed to match guys to the apex. It's just right now the operational side of his game is really inconsistent. You talk about pad level, leverage maintenance, weight transfers when you're matching, those are things that he's going to have to work on, because it can be kind of clunky and uncoordinated right now. The hand placement can be very inefficient and inconsistent too. So there's a lot of work to be done with Cam Williams, but the athletic upside, the physical upside is undeniable. And I think, in a situation like this where Lane Johnson is under contract for the foreseeable future, Cam Williams, there's no guarantee that he's going to play meaningful snaps in year 1 or even year 2. So I think having that time to work behind the scenes with one of the best OL coaches in the league, I think that'll bode very well for him. So 2 guys who landed in a really good spot. I'm excited to see what ultimately they can do and, how close they can reach to their potential.
Good breakdown there of the NFL draft. Ian, I got to ask you though, you cover this thing, you look up every single prospect. It's 300, 400, 500 prospects in some case, and then you watch it all unfold, right? Well, what stood out to you from a macro level, from the whole NFL? Is it Shedeur Sanders? Obviously, that was one of the big storylines. What were some of the big things you noticed in the NFL draft as you kind of grade every player, dive into the tape, rank them on your big board, and then watch where they fall? What were some of the things that stood out to you overall about this NFL draft?
Yeah, I mean, Shedeur Sanders was probably the first one. I won't dwell on it too much because I know it's been talked about to death. I think with him, it was kind of a classic case of, was the media evaluation right, or did we miss something? Because the media and the GMs always have some differences, some dissonance.
Right.
I think with Shedeur Sanders, obviously there was a lot of smoke about the interviews not going well. I think there is enough smoke that you look at, from a public standpoint where you can say, okay, maybe the makeup as a leader did concern them, because I know, the spring game last spring, there was the players transferring out and he's kind of calling them out on social media. Like that's not something you want in a locker room, right? And then, after a game where he threw an interception, kind of blaming his teammates as well. So there's enough smoke where you can be reasonably critical, but I also think confidence is a great thing to have for a QB, right? So he's a very confident guy. I think he has enough talent to potentially sift his way out of that Cleveland Browns QB rotation. And I think going in round 5 could ultimately be the fire under him that lights that, right? That shows him that, hey, I need to do things a little differently. But again, I have an opportunity here. So I hope he takes it as a learning experience. I hope he does, because I do think he has enough to potentially start down the line. Elsewhere, just kind of the usual culprits who had really good drafts. I think the Eagles had a great one, Howie Roseman. I really liked the Chiefs draft. Aside from their second rounder, I thought that was a little high, but they got Jalen Royals from Utah State in round 4, which was one of the best value deals in the class for me. The Seattle Seahawks had a phenomenal draft too. Even though Nick Warrior, I wasn't super high on him, I think going to Mike McDonald is probably the best landing spot for him, because he's a very versatile defender and McDonald will know how to get the best out of him. But then they got Torrey Horton from Colorado State in round 5. I mean, that's a guy who I think can be a starting wide receiver right out of the gate. And then there were a lot of other teams that did very well. Some teams are reloading on offense, like the Panthers, like the Bears, but then some are really reinforcing the defense, the Cardinals being one. So I think, were there missed opportunities? We'll see. But overall, I think that the overarching storyline is that a lot of teams made the most of this opportunity. And now it's just kind of using the talent that they have in-house and getting them where they need to be, because that's going to be where the threads kind of disconnect as well. So very excited to see how this one unfolds. I think a lot of overarching storylines, but a lot of talent that was added to the league kind of en masse. And I think, not too many teams separated themselves. I think all of them kind of strengthen their bid to, if not compete this year, then at least get the ball rolling for the years to come.
One follow-up for you in NFC East. I thought the Cowboys had a great draft. I thought the New York Giants had a great draft.
Yeah.
The Eagles had a solid draft. Commanders didn't impress me as much, but just for the viewers who care a lot about the NFC East, obviously, how did you see that ranking out? Give me a rank of the best NFC drafts here.
Yeah, so I'd probably keep the Eagles at 1. I really like
always.
I'm not just trying to win the brownie points here. I think Andrew Makuba, Campbell. I really like the value additions they got, and Ty Robinson as well. So I'll put them at 1. The New York Giants, if it all depends on Jackson Dart. It all depends on Jackson.
I don't like that pick, Ian.
And I wasn't super high on it either. I think getting him in a situation though where he has an improving offensive line, you got to figure out right tackle at some point because Evan Neal is not the long-term answer. But he's got Malik Neighbors, and I think aside from Jackson Dart, their draft was lights out. Like I can't find a pick that I didn't like aside from that. So it's really tough because I want to love their draft, and I do like it a lot.
I love their defensive line.
Exactly. Yeah, like Abdul Carter, Darius Alexander. Like, come on, man. Like that's a really, really good haul. It's just, you know, that class is going to be it's going to be make or break with Jackson Dart, for better or worse. You know, like the entire reputation of that for years to come is going to be whether Dart is the answer or he's not. And, you know, maybe the players that they added outside of that lay a foundation for the next guy, but that's a little cloudy because of that. But I loved their class outside of that. The Commanders only had 5 picks, so that kind of dulled their outlook. They didn't have as much volume, but I actually liked what they did with their first 2 picks a lot. I think, you know, Josh Connerly potentially makes that offensive line closer to elite because he's a very athletic tackle with pretty good technique and refinement for his age. I think he can slot in right away. They got Connerly, Laramie Tunsil, and then Sam Cosme, and then they can let Brandon Coleman or Nick Allegretti win the guard spot, Tyler Biadasz at center. So that unit is really strong. I think Connerly helps with that. And then Trey Amos in round 2. Trey Amos was my was my 16th overall player. They got him at 61st overall. So he was one of my favorite prospects. I think, you know, man coverage, off man, zone, 6'1", 185, 32-inch arms. He's a playmaker. He's fluid, explosive, instinctive. Was one of my favorite prospects, and they got him at incredible value. Getting Jalen Lane in round 4, I think a really versatile player who you can use on end arounds off jet sweeps, but then also let him go vertical. So I think he'll fit Cliff Kingsbury's scheme really well. And then their last 2 picks, I think they did a pretty good job too. So I would put the Commanders 3rd, but it's really tough because I loved what the Cowboys did in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I like the I would put the Cowboys 2nd. I think they took Booker too soon. Yeah, but I think he's going to be a good player.
I think he will too. Yeah, my big qualm with the Cowboys is that they didn't even touch wide receiver. You know, so you got CeeDee Lamb and then Jalen Tolbert, right? Like Jonathan Mingo. I really have concerns about CeeDee Lamb getting doubled a lot, and then where are they going to be able to go, right? You know, I think my philosophy is always that you need at least 2 or 3, at least 3 guys that you can go to at wide receiver. And the Cowboys right now, I think they only have 1. And to be fair, if we had graded these classes after just day 1 and 2, the Cowboys might have been my favorite class because they got Tyler Booker, who, again, the athletic limitations are there, but he's a very, very good player. He's going to be a very solid pro because technically sound, big, incredibly physical, you know, and I think he'll fit their identity very well. Round 2, getting Donovan Ezeraku at the value they got. Again, the speed to power is a little bit concerning because it's not there, but he's fluid. He's a great pass rusher. I think he can be a really good implement for them. And then getting Savon Ravel in round 3, again, a top 25 prospect for me if he's fully healthy. A cornerback trio of Trayvon Diggs, Savon Ravel, Deron Bland, that can be a top 3 CB duo in the league if he can stay healthy. I mean, that can be locked down. So I loved what they did on day 1 and 2. It's just day 3. Some of the value decisions that they made kind of lost me a little bit, like taking a linebacker who's kind of inconsistent, not super athletic, over Torrey Horton, who was the top 75 guy for me, who would have filed in right away as a wide receiver too. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I still think you need more playmakers on offense. I really question how they're going to be able to operate that way. But again, I still liked what they did. I think Jaden Blue is going to be a great spark plug at the RB rotation. So I think they got better. It's just the NFC East is one of the toughest divisions in football. So the margin for error is really, really thin.
Great breakdown, Ian. One more last question for you. We appreciate all the extra time you gave us today at IC_draft. Truly one of the best draft nicks, and you guys can tell after listening to him here on Birds 365 a few times this draft cycle. Who has the highest ceiling on the Philadelphia Eagles draft class?
The highest ceiling.
I'll take
and one more, the highest floor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No
Jihad Campbell. He's got the best.
I was going to say probably Jihad Campbell for the highest ceiling. You know, I think he, as athletic as he is, as many different ways as you can use him. Like to me, that's not too difficult for me. Yeah. I think he has.
But who's number 2? That's because I'm taking Jihad out because to me it's pretty obvious. But
it's difficult. I mean, Cameron Williams' ceiling is very, very high. The floor is very, very low. But if you can refine his technique, then if you can let him develop and kind of stack those days year over year, I think Cam Williams, especially learning from Jeff Stoutland, learning from Lane Johnson too. Like, I don't want to sell Eagles fans on the Kool-Aid, because again, we need to see it happen, right? It doesn't always happen for these developmental guys. But I will say Cam Williams, had he stayed in school and continued to refine his game and show out against SEC competition, he might have been a top 100 player next year.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear you say that, because I was thinking the same thing. I know he came out after only 1 year starting.
Yeah. So I think, getting him in this situation is great. And then the highest floor, it's tricky because I think he's closer to the highest ceiling for me too, but Andrew Makuba, I'll go with the highest floor. Again, because you can use him in so many different roles. He's so instinctive and intelligent on top of the coverage mobility. Again, like we talked about, he's got to up his weight a little bit, up his weight class to kind of hold up against the NFL riggers. But as far as being able to be diverse and role flexible, but then also a playmaker, I think he's one of the guys who can make an impact right away in that secondary.
Ian, thank you so much for joining, man. We appreciate it very much. Ian Cummings at IC_draft, the best in the business here on Birds 365, giving you guys the heat on the Eagles draft class. Great stuff, Ian. We appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Ian Cummings joining us here on Birds 365. Absolutely great breakdown there at the NFL draft. John, he definitely gave some Eagles fans some excitement about some of those day 3 picks.
Yeah.
Guys, top hundreds, you took Smile Munden at 161. He said he was a top 100 player. Ty Robinson at 111. He was a top 100 player for Ian. Pretty good breakdown there of the Eagles draft class, Johnny Mac.
Big upside for Cameron Williams. I like his thought process with Miles Hinton moving inside the guard. See, most people wouldn't think of that, but the Eagles have a history, as Ian pointed out, of using bigger bodies inside. I like how he explained, the production versus the projection standpoint for Antoine, Powell, Ryland. I think he did a good job there.
Yeah, he did.
And then, I'm a bigger floor guy. You see it with Drew Kendall and Kyle McCord. We talked about some of the limitations. And as I said, bottom 10 quarterback in the NFL is pretty good. So I'm a little bit higher on Kyle than Ian, but Ian's great. And you see it. But I'll say I like the Cowboys number 2 in the NFC East in their draft.
You could tell Ian wanted them to take a wide receiver. That's why he
because but let's be honest. I mean, and Howie explained this. The premium picks are where you get your difference makers.
Right.
And they got 3 potential difference makers. As Ian explained, he didn't like their day 3, which I'm fine with. But day 3 is not as important as getting 3. I think Tyler Booker's. I think they took him too early, but I think he's going to be a really good player.
I think he's a good. Remember, they lost obviously Hall of Famer Zach Martin this year, so I do think that was a good pick despite it being high.
And then Donovan Ezaraku, we were talking about him as a potential fit for the Eagles.
He was a potential first rounder for us. Remember, a lot of people.
And they get him in the second round. And then Siobhan Revell from East Carolina, who tore his ACL. He'd be a top. He would have. He was one of those guys I mentioned could have been a potential first round pick if people were comfortable. So he's got a huge upside. And those are their primary picks. They're day 1 and day 2 picks, and they all got a chance to be really good. And that's just more impactful than day 3 guys who are, as Howie also explained, that's where you're looking for one trait and then build on it. And that's how the Eagles approach it. More developmental thought process. But I think the Eagles got a lot of good developmental prospects on day 3 of the draft.
Trey Amos, John, the one that got away from us. I wanted him bad. I was happy to hear Ian had him graded out so high. I really liked him, but anyway, a couple spots before us to the Commanders. So good stuff there, Johnny Mac, from Ian Cummings. I thought he really where are you on Makuba? I will say, when
I'm a little more concerned,
John. I was a little bit, I talked to you immediately, and you brought up the undersized, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, hey, I wasn't particularly buying it. All right, I've been watching a little bit of Makuba tape, listening to Ian Cummings. Boy, people are high on this kid, man. People are high on this kid. I'm starting to be won over on the potential of Andrew Makuba. Obviously, I have to see it on the field, but I am starting to be won over. Where are you on the Makuba pick?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see it first. Now, I explained that that's exactly what Ian said is what Howie said. They were trying to find the space guy, the guy who can be comfortable in space, the guy that can cover, the guy who's fast, the guy, and he mentioned it a number of times. He even said there's no such thing as a box safety anymore. It's all about coverage. And that's what they're looking for. That's the upside. But at some point, as we see, the Eagles won a Super Bowl in a different direction from an offensive perspective. At some point, the other stuff comes in,
right?
The physicality. And I bring up Avonte Maddox for a reason. I know Eagles fans don't like him anymore, but at his height, he was a pretty good player. But he was also injury prone. So you have those goofball, he's made of glass people. No, he was 5'9", 180 pounds, and he played like he was 210 pounds. And he was always sticking his head into the pile, and he was great. That's why they moved him to the slot. Well, his size issues as well, but at his height, he was great with run fits. He was great with run support and all that kind of stuff. But he's also susceptible to injury because he was just so small. Can you hold up at 185 pounds long term? I don't know. We're going to see. And as he said,
a lot of people were telling me, calling bullshit on the 185 or 186 because I guess he was like 195 at his.
Well, I saw him in person. He ain't big.
I know. I try to explain to people sometimes the pro day numbers are a little bit more unreliable than the NFL combine numbers. But I understand. I mean, he can add weight. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, it's an interesting pick there, though. I'm curious to see kind of what happens. John, we got a bunch of super chats. Let's rattle through them. We got Caden Steele coming up in a couple of minutes here on Birds 365. So 2 great guests for you guys today to break down this NFL draft. Abe checks in. What's up, Abe? J-Mac, what are we doing with Goddard? Malik Carr?
I don't understand the question. What are we doing with Goddard? Hopefully working something out.
Yeah, right.
I mean, now
I guess Malik Carr got invited to the Eagles rookie minicamp. Is that what happened?
Well, I don't think that has anything to do with Dallas Goddard.
You got a better chance of the Harrison Bryant fan, JD3 being
right. To replace Dallas Goddard? That's one of the best tight ends in football. I mean, now that Indianapolis drafted Tyler Warren, you're in a situation where there aren't a lot of options because people have budgeted. They don't have a lot of money to make splashy signings. So it might come down to a situation where Dallas says, all right, let's run it back for one more year. Do what Josh Sweat did and then get to free agency next year and probably leave when everybody's flush with budgetary money and ready to go right at the start of free agency. Hopefully from the Eagles standpoint, that's the end game. But I mean, Malik Carr, a tryout rookie minicamp.
Hey, you're putting JD3 to shame.
I mean,
he says, don't disrespect Harrison Bryant with that bum. That's hilarious.
Harrison Bryant might be George Kittle compared to
who just signed a massive deal.
Malik Carr. So no, I don't think. Look, tryout players that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Occasionally you get Adam Thielen, but very, very rare.
Very rarely. Sig Lord checks in. What's up, Sig Lord? I was watching Ryan Clark, and he said Jahad Campbell was going to be an off-ball linebacker. I agree with him, honestly, over John. I told you, you're fighting this battle, John.
Well,
there is
Sig Lord, I guarantee of those two people you're talking about, only one of them has talked to Howie Roseman. And only one of them matters. And it ain't Ryan Clark or John McMullen. It's Howie Roseman. And Howie Roseman already explained his plan for Jahad Campbell. So don't listen to Ryan Clark. Don't listen to John McMullen if you don't want to. Listen to the guy making the decisions. God, am I going to have to deal with this all? Blame Howie. I don't give a shit what Emmanuel Acho says, what Ryan Clark says. None of them even
John, welcome to
listen.
talking about football. You're gonna have people that disagree with you.
No, yeah. But again, first of all, it's not what I want. It's what the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles said. He's the decision maker. The fact that other people don't know, yeah, go listen to that.
I want to hear Vic Fangio's who I want to hear over Howie, but I hear you. I mean, obviously Vic has talked to Howie about it. Prince checks in. What's up, Prince? J-Mac, thank you. What I was saying is that it shouldn't affect you guys either way. These are grown men. Politics is divisive. It's built to pit people against each other. We agree to disagree. Well, I agree with most of your comment there, Prince. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I don't know why people hold up football players, basketball, sports stars, celebrities into some, you got to believe my side on a political spectrum. Leave them the hell alone. Now, yeah, there's some guys.
Well, I agree with that, but the thing I would differentiate here is like, because I was, I put out that tweet and everybody's like still blowing up on my Twitter about it, but like Saquon riding on Trump Force One or whatever it's called, whatever the Air Force One, whatever
he might call it Trump Force One.
Yeah, whatever. I think that's what he calls his plane. Whatever. And Jalen golfing with Barack Obama. Those are the same thing to me. It's two dudes doing what they want in their free time. Who gives a shit? You know, the difference with the president or the White House visit, in my opinion, was that your team that you're the leader of was being celebrated on a world stage. People might not want to admit that, but that's a different audience for a lot of the Eagle, for a lot of people who consume that stuff. I would have liked to see Jalen there. I think it's a little bit different there than saying, hey, Saquon shouldn't ride on Air Force One or Jalen shouldn't golf with Obama.
I don't think it's that big of a deal, other than it's a pretty cool thing for the players if they accept it. If they don't, that's up to them as well. I wish it was nonpartisan. It used to be nonpartisan. As much as, well, certainly more so, it's supposed to be nonpartisan. I would say the same thing. If Joe Biden was still in the White House, the Eagles should go. Every single Eagle should go, because I think it's cool for them. That's my opinion. If they don't go because of their political beliefs, I don't care. And if they don't go because they don't want to be pressured by lunatics outside who call them horrible things on social media because they think they don't agree with their favorite presidential candidate, I don't blame them. Why would you want to go through that? So there's many different reasons someone could decide to go, and someone could decide to not to go, other than I like this president and I dislike this president. That could also be part of it. I'm not saying it isn't. Certain guys could like this president. Certain guys could hate this president. My point is, I'm not going to be hypocritical about this. I don't give a shit who goes, who doesn't go, other than if they ask my advice, I would say, you know what? It's pretty cool. You should do it. You never know if you're going to be able to do it again. That would be my personal advice. Whether they take it or not, I don't care. It's up to them. They're grown men. They can do what they want. It doesn't have, but where I disagree with you, Zander, it has nothing to do with leadership on the football field and in the football spectrum. And I don't care about Jalen Hurts' leadership in the community. Now, I know other people may engage in that, want to feel good about him and feel good about their quarterback. But I'm saying what matters in a football sense is his leadership in the locker room and on the field. That's it.
Makes sense.
Everything else is ancillary and not meaningful to the Philadelphia Eagles as a football team. That's all I'm trying to say.
Siglor checks in. We got 2 more on this. I want to close this topic out. Siglor, I thought Jalen didn't care what people thought. I don't think he does care what people think, Siglor. JD3, oh, no, let me do this one here first because it's on the same topic. D. Hughes says, Malcolm Jenkins had a good piece on Hurts and his decision. Encourage everyone to read it. Shout out to Hurts, AJ Devontae, and them boys stand for something or fall for anything. Yeah, but I read Malcolm's piece. I thought it was pretty good, but he did kind of shit on Saquon, for hanging with the president. So I don't know what you think of that. Maybe you are taking the political side, which is fine. You're entitled to take it. I don't agree with it though.
Yeah, and Malcolm's one of the few that actually does the work and is interested. And
yeah, that's why I thought Malcolm's piece was actually really good.
And has his political leanings. And if you know Malcolm, you know what they are, and that's fine. He can do what he wants, but Malcolm's just like everybody else. Because he believes something doesn't mean somebody else has to believe something. And that part of it is childish. Like everybody wants people to agree with them, and it's fucked up. First of all, it's unrealistic. Unrealistic, number one. Number two, the fact that anyone from the most powerful person in the world, which is generally the U.S. president, down to a local level politician, believes that has the hubris to believe that everybody should agree with them on every issue is literally the dumbest thing in human history. And unfortunately, we are closer to that than the logical, hey, you know what? Not everybody's going to agree with me, and that's okay. Do they hold the door at Wawa? I'd rather have a better person that disagrees with me politically than a scumbag that agrees with everything I believe.
I couldn't agree. That was very well stated, Johnny Mac. 2 more supers, then we're going to get to Caden Steele coming up here on Birds 365. JD3 says, we might lose Big Dom to the Secret Service if he stays around Trump too long. Don't let the trolls upset you from a real ball knowers like me, J-Mac.
Yeah. Well,
This is Harrison Bryant fan, if you haven't put that together yet, JD3. He's the ultimate Harrison Bryant truther here on JAKIB Sports.
Well, yeah. Harrison Bryant, I'm with you. JD3. He's got a better shot than Malik Carr.
Brian Pumper, final one here. Goddard can take a lap. Project 89 is on the rise. I told you, Z, my 7th heaven, aka Ringo season, is my cornerback 2. There you go. He thinks Ringo's getting ready.
Johnny Wilson still hasn't. They still haven't made that move, Pumper. Still haven't made
Brian,
that.
I don't know what they're waiting on, man. Have you not gotten the call into Vic, or what's going on there? Or not Vic, Patullo or Sirianni? All right, let's get to Caden Steele here on Birds 365. Appreciate everybody. By the way, appreciate everybody for being here. Got a great crowd in here as always. Hit that like button for us. Drop your comments down below. We're good. If you agree, disagree, whatever it is, I do appreciate all the commentary as well, back and forth. We're talking football, everybody. It's not supposed to be in agreement all the time, as Johnny Mac pointed out. That's unrealistic. Good stuff there by John. Let's go to Caden Steele joining us now here on Birds 365. Caden Steele from NJ.com. Caden, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Tuesday morning post-NFL draft?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Caden, a lot of hype. We had Ian Cummings, great draft analyst, before you from Pro Football Network, very high on the Eagles draft. And everybody is early in the process. I think there's probably 32 fan bases that think they did a good job in the draft. Where are you with the Eagles and what they were able to accomplish in this particular draft?
Yeah, I think they had a good draft as well. When you're able to land a guy that's a consensus, top 15, top 20 prospect at 31, you have to feel good about that. He was arguably one of the best players in this draft. You could even say he might be higher than that if it wasn't for positional value. Jahad Campbell is a really good football player, and to get him at 31, I think is great. I particularly liked their day 3 as well, and some of the things they're able to do, like taking a chance on Cameron Williams in the 6th round. I think is fun. You can't teach size and arm length, and he's only a 1-year starter. So I think day 3 they landed a lot of good players on top of it, and then Andrew Mabuka fills a need at safety. So overall, I think they did a good job. You have to wonder if Howie doesn't regret not getting another interior offensive lineman who could play guard tackle to compete with Tyler Steen. I would say that's the one area. I'm a little surprised they didn't get a guy that could more do that. I know they got Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams, but they're both.
Yeah,
huge.
they're both more project type guys, and we'll see if they can develop. Now, because Caden and I did not text him or anything like that, and because he was there the entire weekend. He heard Howie Roseman, and boy, this is just a narrative that will not die, Caden Steele. The Philadelphia Eagles, if JAKIB Campbell is healthy, and there's a big question about that, but if he's healthy, do you think he's strictly an off-ball linebacker after listening to Howie Roseman?
No, I don't think he's strictly. I think he's going to be – I don't think he's going to become a full-time pass rusher like Micah Parsons or anything like that, but like a hybrid – version of that, like I think we talked about, John, like an Andrew Van Ginkel, but with greater physical tools and ability. And if you're able to play him in that type of a role, he could be even more dominant. I think they're going to use him as a jack of all trades player, because you listen to Howie Roseman, and maybe he was just saying it to be nice to Nakobe, but saying this doesn't really affect Nakobe.
Well, I don't think he does from the perspective of Nakobe as the middle linebacker, and I think long term, whether Nakobe stays healthy or even continues to play, gets back and continues to play, he might price himself out. The problem I have is if you keep JAKIB Campbell at off-ball linebacker, he's probably the backup to Zach Bond, not the middle linebacker. That's going to be Jeremiah Trotter or Small Munden.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I think it's developing. But short term, it's Nakobe.
Yeah. I think he's going to be a hybrid player. I mean, NFL teams are looking for this now. You look at Jalen Walker with the Falcons, play linebacker Georgia, but also rush the quarterback. I think he's going to be used in a similar role. He's probably a better pass rusher currently than JAKIB Campbell. I think JAKIB Campbell still has a long ways to go until he's like a really good pass rusher, but he's got the physical tools to do it. Alabama recruited him to be an edge rusher. He got stuck behind Dallas Turner and Will Anderson, so they moved him positions. But I think they
pretty good players, by the way.
Yes,
Dallas Turner and Will Anderson.
Yeah, I think they've envisioned him as their Swiss Army knife, their weapon on defense that can do a little bit of everything. And maybe I know people call it positionless football. I mean, it's not positionless necessarily, but I mean, I think that's what they're going to do is they're going to move him all around. I think they were excited to get him because they view him as that player that defenses are going to have a hard time scheming for because you could play him anywhere. So I think that's the direction they're going.
Caden, how can any concern on those injuries? Albert Breer reported, plural shoulders and knees.
Both shoulders and both.
I read
knees.
that and I'm like, I mean, John started the show talking about how people were incensed that he said it's somewhat concerning. I would go another level and say I think that's pretty concerning for JAKIB Campbell. But obviously, the Eagles' medicals checked out on him. Any concern on that from your end, brother?
Yeah, a little concerned, especially if it's both knees and both shoulders. But I mean, we've seen Landon Dickerson come in the NFL with this awful reputation of injuries as well. And he's, other than getting nicked up in games and leaving occasionally, he's stayed primarily healthy. The Eagles seem to have a good track record the last couple of years of taking these injured players and getting them to, stay healthy. So the medical staff here or with the Eagles believes, he's fine. I guess you have to have confidence in that. I'd be more worried about less long-term, more short-term, like, especially if he misses a chunk of training camp, how fast will he be ready to play? Maybe it's a Cooper DeJean situation where it takes him, 4 or 5 weeks to get his legs under him. But
Zander and I talked about that early. That I don't even care about that. I'm fine waiting for him. When he's healthy, he's healthy. And if he stays healthy long term, I think he's going to be a really good pick. But it's bizarre to me that so many people just listen to the Ryan. Who was it? Ryan Clark says he's going to be an all-ball linebacker, Caden. I'm like, listen to GM. Don't listen to me. Listen to Howie. And by the way, who was in Howie's ear? Vic Fangio.
Yeah. I will say his off-ball linebacker tape is ridiculous. I mean, if they just wanted to play him,
well, I get why people projected him that way, but like I said, it's not about my personal projection, your personal projection, Ryan Clark's personal projection. It's about Howie Roseman's projection and Vic Fangio's projection. They're the ones in charge. Hey, maybe they should use him as an off-ball linebacker. But if we're being honest, that's not the plan. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
My bigger concern would be if they try to make him a full-time edge, because I think that is a significant projection. And if that's their plan, that would be my worry, because then you're taking away from a big part of his strengths, which is his range as a linebacker. And I think I would not want to do that. I mean, if I were, them.
No, and I get that, and I have no problem with people who think that. Like who, say, hey, I think he should be an off-ball linebacker. No problem. But they're going to try to make him something else. And maybe if it doesn't work, maybe they scale back to that. But the plan is for him to be this hybrid edge rusher, stack linebacker, flat defender like Andrew Van Ginkel, even joker stand-up rusher on obvious passing situations. But if you watch Andrew Van Ginkel in Miami, the vast majority of that time, even with all those different roles, the vast majority of his time was rushing the passer. The vast majority of time. And I think that's going to be the case with JAKIB Campbell. Is it right? Who knows? But that's the projection. And people are having a really difficult time accepting that. It's bizarre to me.
Yeah. I think it's tough when it's not the thing that he did really well at Alabama. Like, there are flashes, but it wasn't consistent. Obviously, the Eagles believe in Jeremiah Wasserman's ability to develop pass rushers. You look at Nolan Smith. You look at what Jalix Hunt did in the Super Bowl. You have a guy with a really good athletic profile who has a lot of speed. But I do think there is a big leap there. I mean, if you're going to...
Oh, definitely. There's definitely a big leap.
And it doesn't always work when teams try to take these, quote unquote positionless players. And like, you look at, it's a different role, but like the Isaiah Simmons of the world and stuff like that. It's harder when you try to get a guy to do something that, it's outside of his comfort zone. I mean, I know he was stuck behind good pass rushers, but he found his role in his comfort zone at linebacker, and he was really good at it. So I guess the question is, why change it? But they have confidence in their staff in developing players, and he's got good physical tools and a good athletic profile, and they think they can make a special player, in that type of role. So
Andrew Makuba, safety from Texas, 64th overall. Could have had Kevin Winston Jr., could have had Xavier Watts. Eagles went with the space eater, the guy who's comfortable in space, very undersized. How hyped are you about Andrew Makuba versus Sidney Brown on the back end of the Eagles defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to win that starting job. I think some people are still saying that, Sidney is going to, really, have a shot at winning it. I don't think they draft Andrew Makuba if they have a ton of confidence in Sidney Brown. We didn't see them draft an outside corner, during the draft. We didn't see them, maybe they wish they could have drafted a guard, but they didn't. I think they don't have a ton of confidence in Sidney Brown. I think they like Sidney Brown. I mean, how can you not? I mean, his personality, his energy, like, he's going to be a great special teams player. And I think they would feel great if he developed into a really good third safety. But I think you talked about it. I mean, Vic Fangio has say, whispering in Howie's ear. I think Andrew Makuba has natural cover skills, ball production last year at Texas, 5 interceptions. I know he's a little undersized, but if this is a Vic guy, and he's going to play, and I'm not sure if Sidney Brown's a Vic Fangio guy. I mean, I know he was coming off the injury last year. He didn't come back to week 7, so I give him, I understand why it took him some time to catch up, but he didn't pass Tristan McCullum on the depth chart last year.
Yeah, but he wasn't healthy.
Yeah, I agree with
he had a very difficult rehab. The things didn't go the right way. Like, I don't, because I've heard, I only say that because I've heard a lot of people bring that up, Caden. Last year, if he was healthy, he would have been ahead of Tristan McCullum, but he just wasn't healthy. So I kind of put that off to the side. Now I'm with you. He's not necessarily a big guy. Vic wasn't here when they drafted him. And obviously, Makuba is a big guy. So from that standpoint, I think you're on to something. But ultimately, I think he'll take the first rep in training camp. We'll see. And it'll be his job to lose, Sidney Brown. But he very well might lose it.
Yeah. And I think he will. I think it'll be similar to, remember last year, Keeley was taking those first reps at training camp, and he lost it. I think the biggest difference to me, and like in terms of what they're looking for, is I think Sidney, if we remember him coming out, the scouting report was, and I think we've seen it in the limited action he's played in the NFL, he's really good at getting downhill and playing with a lot of fire and going downhill, making tackles, and like just linear really fast. Whereas like Makuba, I think just has a lot more range on the back end. I think they talked about Sidney as like he's a guy that can play in the box, but he also has range. But it's not something he really did. Where Makuba is just a natural free safety with natural cover ability. Where I think Sidney's just, I don't know if that's Sidney's strength. And in a safety battle, I wonder if that's what cost Sidney Brown the job.
Yeah, it's definitely possible because again. And Howie said that's one thing I took note of. Howie said there is no longer, and I'm paraphrasing, no longer box safeties in the NFL. You got to be able to cover. And that trends towards Andrew Makuba as well. But I think it's going to be an interesting comp to keep an eye on because of guys like Winston and Watts being there. And they went with the faster guy, and we'll see if it works out. Day 3, Caden, a lot of interesting prospects. Who's your favorite of the day 3 picks?
I'm gonna go. It's tough. I like a lot of the guys they actually got. I'm gonna
go. They took some worthwhile shots on day 3.
I'm gonna go Smile Monday Jr.
I love Smile.
I can envision a role. Like I know he's super light for a linebacker, but you talk about Howie. The big theme was they want guys that can run, that can cover, and he can do that at linebacker. Does he ever develop into a full-time starter at his weight if he doesn't get much bigger? And which he might. So I'm not saying he can never do it, but like early on, I could see him carving out a role in defense as a coverage linebacker on passing downs. He's a really smooth athlete, and he can cover tight ends, running backs. I've even seen him cover slot wide receivers. There's a role for that. I mean, he's a great athlete. He was a productive starter for Georgia. He's super fast. That's a guy that, other than I'll say Ty Robinson, because I do think he'll cover that role pretty early. At least more Joma type snaps or a little less.
Yeah.
But Smile Munn is the other guy I could see developing a role in defense. And not only that, because of his speed and athleticism, I think he's going to be a fantastic special teams player for them early on. And we talk about speed and they need guys to run. You can't have guys that struggle with movement. I mean, look, I know a lot of people love Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I think there's a reason they added Smile Money. He's a better athlete at the linebacker position.
Yeah, he is.
And it probably knocks Trotter Jr. One spot farther down the draft.
So week 1, Nakobe Dean's not healthy. Jihad Campbell's not healthy. Who starts at middle linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I'd probably still lean Trotter just because he's been in the system for a year. But like long term, look, I like Trotter Jr. I haven't seen enough of a sample size to say he can't be a starting linebacker in the NFL. But the knockout of him coming out of Clemson is that he's not a great athlete. And Smile Munnan is. I think long term he's got more potential because of that ability to cover, consistently, tight ends and running backs. And that's not easy to find at the linebacker position. I think Trotter Jr. is going to carve out a role in the NFL. Obviously, he's really smart. They trusted him enough to consider playing him last year. I know Oren Burks came in and he held down that job, so there's no real reason
He
to
did
play.
a freaking great job too, Oren Burks, in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I
he
thought
did.
that was going to be a big problem. I
Right.
thought when the Kobe went down against Green Bay, I was like, oh boy. And Oren Burks was just phenomenal.
Yes. So there's no
But
reason to play Trotter Jr. last year, but
yeah. So yeah. And remember early on, and during the regular season, when Oren had to play a little bit, Vic even put Trotter in there. There was a little bit of a rotation before he quickly settled on Oren Burks. But yeah, I do think people get too down on young players when they don't immediately hit the field and show something. And if you're a day 3 guy, you're a developmental guy. And that's what Trotter was last year. And that's what all these day 3 guys were talking about, including Smile Munden, are this year. So you can't count on them making an immediate splash. But as Andrew said, I like some of the lottery tickets Howie talked, and 2 of them are Drew Kendall and Kyle McCord, who probably aren't going to play here unless things go drastically poorly. But I think the upside with those players are NFL starters. Even, I'm not talking Kyle McCord, top 10 quarterback, but bottom 10. I could see him being a bottom 10 quarterback. What do you think of those picks, Kendall and Kyle McCord?
yeah, Kyle McCord, I understand from I don't think it excited me, but I get it from a business perspective. It's smart to invest in developmental quarterbacks. It gives you the flexibility potentially if Kyle McCord is a solid backup to trade Tanner McKee next offseason, which I think the Eagles would love to do to get more draft picks. And then if Kyle McCord's good in 2 years, you can trade him.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a smart business strategy. I think Kyle McCord does have low-end starter potential, which might net you a good draft pick. And you need good backup quarterbacks. I mean, there's teams that have made that mistake of not going in with a good backup. So I think from that perspective, it's smart. Kyle McCord really bounced back from what happened at Ohio State, which I think it shows you a testament to his character and a little bit. And I think that one I do like a fair bit. Drew Kendall, I don't think I'm as high on. I know he said he played guard in high school. And I get it. They need a true center on this team because they do not want to move Landon Dickerson over. But I am surprised they didn't draft a guy that had a little more guard experience in college. I guess that would be my only knock. But obviously, this is something they want. I mean, they drafted Dylan McMahon last year. It did not pan out. Dylan McMahon was super undersized. Obviously, they weren't as high on him. They got him back on the practice squad, and then he was gone, 4 or 5 days later because the Rams signed him off the practice squad. But obviously, this is a position they want. And it's a position they have to have because I think if they had to move Landon Dickerson over to center, I mean, who's playing left guard then? Then you might already have a problem with my right guard. Then you're going to have a problem with my left guard. So I get why they did it. And he comes from good bloodlines. I didn't watch Pete Kendall play, but I mean, I looked him up. 13 years.
Good player. Very good player.
Yeah. 13 years, not easy. So
couple good bloodlines on that offensive line now with Miles Hinton as well. His dad, Chris Hinton, 7-time All-Pro.
Yes. Howie said that's an important part of their evaluation. At least
that's more All-Pros than Lane Johnson, by the way, but who's counting?
Oh, Chris Hinton's one of the best offensive linemen I've ever seen.
Right there. He's coming on the show later on today. We'll have him on JAKIB Sports later on today. Caleb, Caden, I want to ask you about Ty Robinson. All right. What do you think it means for the defensive line? Do you think he's a contributor in year 1 after the loss of Milton Williams? And 3, sorry, I'm going 3-pronged here. Does it mean anything on Jordan Davis, who's got that extent year, that 5th-year option coming up?
I'll start with Jordan Davis. Probably not. I mean, because Ty Robinson plays such a different role. I don't think he has 6'5", and he's kind of light. I don't think he's going to be like a nose. I don't think that really has a long-term impact.
It's not going to work if he's playing nose tackle.
Yeah, not at all. I have no idea what they're going to do with Jordan Davis, but I don't think Ty Robinson has an impact on that. In terms of his role, I mean, I think he's going to play snaps. I think that the interesting thing about Ty Robinson is the athleticism. I mean, I think he was 5th the overall athleticism score at the combine was 5th, but he had the fastest 40. It was like a 4.88. I mean, the broad and the vertical jump were crazy numbers as well. So the athleticism and then the production, his final season in Nebraska was 7 sacks. I think the thing I found interesting that Nebraska did with him is due to his athleticism, they also lined him up on the edge as well as, as a 5 technique. And then they moved him back inside, as a 3 technique. And then they also played him a little bit at nose. So the versatility stood out to me. I wonder if
and he can play fullback.
He can play fullback as well. I wonder if Milton Williams was a very versatile player as well. I wonder if that's, something obviously they value. And I wonder if they view him as a piece that they can move out to the edge and play at the 3 tech and at the 5 tech at times. So I think that versatility will help. So I think he's gonna have a significant role. I think he slides in as your 4th defensive tackle behind Morajoma, who probably sees a snap count increase, probably takes on the Milton Williams role next year. And I think he's a good player. I guess the only worry I would have is like he's an older player. They usually draft from this profile, older, kind of a 1-year breakout. He had moments earlier in his career, but he never really put it together until the last year. He talked about how he was finally done medical school, which helped him finally able to focus on football, which is not an answer you always hear. But overall, I like the pick. I mean, he tested out of the roof, so why not?
All right, Dallas Goedert. Is Malik Carr going to be the replacement? I'm joking. What are the Eagles? Where are we going with? I mean, at some point, these two sides have to get together and say, all right, let's run it back for one more year. I'm starting for many weeks. I said it's more likely Dallas Goedert won't be back. Now I'm starting to think he might be back. Where are you on Dallas and one last run with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, like what other options do they have? Are you really gonna sell, the fan base on Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson and Grant Calcaterra
and Malik Carr?
Yeah.
Rookie tryout tight end, but go ahead.
Maybe you could, unless Michael Mayer or Kyle Pitts are coming available via trade, and you could swing that and then trade Goddard as well. Like maybe I don't have any information on that, but it's just hypothetical. Like unless they can get an upgrade at that position over what they currently have, which I think will be difficult to do, you figure they have to come to an agreement. And where's Dallas Goedert going? Like, there's not a lot of teams that need tight ends right now. Like,
Indy would have been the obvious place, and they just drafted Tyler Warren. I mean,
I wonder if he looks at what Josh Sweat did last year. Obviously, Josh Sweat, if we're going to be honest, probably didn't want to be back. I mean, He wanted a new deal. And he went out and look what he did in the Super Bowl. He broke out. He got a huge contract from the Cardinals. And you look at the tight ends who are going to be hitting free agency next year. I mean, I know he's a little bit older, and ideally he would like to hit free agency when he's younger. But he'll probably still get paid next year, a decent contract. I wonder if he just plays out this year and just gone after 2025.
We'll see what ends up happening on that. Caden, overall, man, if you had to pick one day 3 player that makes it to a second contract in Philly, and there's 7 of them here. You got McWilliams, you got Ty Robinson, you got the offensive linemen, the 3 offensive linemen,
8 of them.
Kyle Munden. Who do you got? I like APR too. Antoine, Powell, Ryland, 25.5 sacks in 2 years. Who you got, Caden?
This is tough. This is tough. This is a huge projection. I could be totally wrong on this. I'm going to eliminate most of the D linemen because you're going to have to pay Jalen Carter. You're probably going to pay Nolan Smith. You're not going to be able to pay every single defensive lineman up front. So, like guys like Ty Robinson and Antoine, Powell, Ryland, if they make it, I feel like play there 4 years as good rotational defensive lineman, probably max out elsewhere. I'm going to go bold prediction. This is a lot of foresight, but I think Cameron Williams is an extremely young player. Probably got terrible advice for coming out. Like should have never came out in the NFL draft in the first place. Was only a 1-year starter. But if I'm going to believe in Jeff Stoutland, we've seen him turn in Jordan Mailata from a rugby player to an all-pro left tackle. Cameron Williams has more football experience than Jordan Mailata did. He's huge. He's got 34.5-inch arms. He's a 1-year starter. I know there was bad moments. Like everyone remembers Jack Sawyer beating him for the sack in the college football national or semi game. But there is no natural right tackle replacement on this roster currently. Lane Johnson, probably going to play another 2 or 3 years. Who knows? Maybe by that third year where, Lane Johnson does retire, Cameron Williams is ready maybe to take over right tackle. This is a tough
lot of Cameron Williams love this morning.
Yeah.
He's a 6th-round pick. So this is me like throwing a huge dart throw. Just taking a
guess.
guess.
It's a tough question. You reserve the right to be wrong. Probably all of us are going to be wrong if we had to make a take.
Yeah, I'm picking Small Munden Jr.
There you go.
To that question. But Cameron Williams is a good one. I will say about the Bilotta comparison, one thing Jeff Stoutland has said pretty consistently, it was better for Jordan to have no experience because he had no bad habits. Guys who play even 1 year, like they have bad habits, and it's tougher from Stoutland's perspective, tougher to break those bad habits. But I think he's got a huge upside. I'm with you. But here's what's going to happen. Here's why I'm taking Small Munden Jr. Nakobe's going to either play really well when he gets back and price himself out because the Eagles can't pay $10 million plus for 2 linebackers. Or he's going to get hurt again, and they're going to move on from that perspective. And they're going to need a new middle linebacker, and they're going to go from Georgia to Georgia, and it's going to be Smile Munden Jr. Because, as we revert back to the original question, Jihad Campbell is playing a different position.
Yeah.
Not a bad choice. I mean, you can't tell yourself right now what Nakobe Dean's going to be when he comes back from injury. I mean, not only does he have the patellar tendon, 2 foot injuries the year before, injury concerns coming out of college. Like, I think it's a fair guess. And you're right. I mean, I think I'm more worried about what Nakobe Dean's going to be going forward. I don't know. I don't think they know.
The streak of paying linebackers might continue, according to J Mac. Let's see what happens. Caden, thanks for joining in, man. We appreciate you joining the show today. Read them at nj.com. Caden, drop your sorry, I don't have your Twitter. It's Caden_Steele.
At 19. Yep.
Caden_Steele 19. So make sure you guys follow him over there. Great follow. Does great work on nj.com as well. Caden, we appreciate you joining in today, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right,
thanks, bud.
Great stuff there from Caden. Still 2 great guests today. Johnny Mac, thought we had some great insight on the show today, especially into the draft class, which was great. Ian was great, obviously, Caden as well. So good insight from our 2 guests today on the Eagles draft class. I got to say, they got me Ian certainly got me a little bit juiced up about the draft.
A lot of hype, a lot of Cameron Williams hype.
Yeah, a lot of Cameron Williams hype. But I was happy to hear Ian say he would probably go much higher if he stayed, because that's what I was thinking as well. John, last question of the day here. We got 7 minutes to play here on Birds 365. We're 2 days away from the Jordan Davis deadline. When do you think we're going to hear news? Obviously, it has to come in the next 48 hours. Here's the thing I don't like about it. Just make the decision. I know they had till the 1st, but don't you think Jordan Davis is at home right now? Like, yeah, I still don't know. You know, a lot of other people in his draft class know.
Just because we don't know doesn't mean he doesn't know.
Okay. So you're saying they would.
I mean, they got White House stuff. You know, again, they doing the draft at White House. I mean, they could do it at any time. I don't know why the Eagles do the things they do. I mean, yeah, they could have done it last week. They could have. It's not like they're sitting there going, "Oh my God, it's 2 minutes before the deadline. What are we going to do?" They know. They've known forever. I do think it's a little bit overblown.
I mean, just do it then.
Well, like I said, I don't know why they do the things they do, but they're not making a last-minute decision on this. They already know. Jordan Davis already knows. Howie said, you know, during the draft, he was asked the question, said, well, we don't talk about contracts until we talk to the player. The player already knows he's bullshitting there. I'll call him out when he's bullshitting. They already know. It's overblown. It's not that big of a deal. He's playing for the Eagles next season, whether people, I don't know if everyone understands that. This is about 2026, not 2025. Ultimately, I think they're going to pick up the option as a placeholder to, work out an extension. But even if they don't, it's not the end of the world. They could still work out an extension throughout the season. But my best guess is though, 13 million is not that big of a deal at this stage. It might seem like a big deal, but it's not that big.
No, it doesn't even seem like a big deal anymore when you see some of the money that gets thrown around nowadays. So it really doesn't. Honestly, it sounds pretty cheap, but we'll see what they end up doing with Jordan Davis. That deadline is Thursday, May 1st. So I would assume we would know something about that before Thursday. We'll give you guys the updates there on Birds 365 when it comes in. So John, the other one is Sirianni. I guess that one they can keep under the wraps. So that might have already happened. We just had
that might be a little bit more, who knows? Like I said, if I'm Nick Sirianni's agent, I'm saying my client should be the highest paid coach in the NFL. And that might, the Eagles might want to keep him under Andy, and there might be a little bit of wrangling there. But ultimately it's going to get done. When it gets done, who knows? But it's going to get done. He's not going into the season as a lame duck.
No, he's not. It actually might already be done. I know that they can kind of hide that one a little bit easier. Then they don't have to publicly file anything or anything like that. So I don't think there's that could be done, and Howie's could be done as well. So we'll see what happens there. I did think it was interesting. Goddard was up there yesterday. It was good to see Becton, by the way. I love freaking Mekhi Becton, man. He was up there. He was rocking the big chain. He had the grills in. I'm like, Mekhi Becton at the White House. Pretty cool to see that.
CJ didn't come because he didn't want to wear a suit.
I saw that.
I don't know if you saw that, but
yeah, I did see that.
So yeah, like I said, on a personal level, if anybody's asking for my advice, and they're not, but if they did, I'd say, yeah, go. It's pretty cool. Go do it. But I have no problem with anybody making decisions for their own best interest. Where I divest from you is I don't care about when people conflate football being more important than it really is. Jalen Hurts' job is to be a leader on the field, in the locker room, and he does that well. And that's the only thing that matters from a football perspective. Those who expect, and it's not just Jalen Hurts, it could be higher profile athletes. LeBron James gets a lot of shit for different things. He should do this, he should do that because of his platform. Nobody has the right to say somebody should do something with their platform. More people need to wrap their head around that. And there's incredible hubris to the average person to think that they have the answers about things that they don't even have information about, to be perfectly honest, like JAKIB Campbell's injury potential, and what's going on with him. You don't even have
that people were so mad at you for saying.
Oh my God! It was ridiculous. I'm like,
can we get a chat check? Is JAKIB Campbell having two shoulders and two knees? Is that at all concerning to the great people of JAKIB Nation?
Because I think words have meaning. As a person that believes that immensely, the term I used purposefully was somewhat concerning. Oh my God! What drastic overreaction that is. I mean, that's just a bunch of people who are caught in their feelings, man. Don't want to close their eyes and cover their ears.
A tiny bit concerning. Yes, concerning. Yes, concerning. Any injury is concerning. Campbell will be fine. You really got a little bit of diverse opinions on that one. I'm with you.
First of all, if you can't admit, I don't know. All I do is offer up the information, which I did on this show long before JAKIB Campbell was selected by the Philadelphia Eagles, that there were concerns around the league about his potential injury issues. Same thing with Will Johnson. Those are the two players I mentioned. Magically, they both fell. Boy, I got lucky on that one. Or it was right. So there's a bunch of people out there saying Albert's lying. Albert Breer. People who have no information. Albert Breer's taking shots at GI. For what reason?
I don't think it was taking a shot. I'm with you. He reported it. One of the top
No, I'm
draft picks.
saying there are people who said, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'm like, all right.
Well, he did fall to 31. What's the explanation then for him falling to 31? I mean, many people had him as forget top 20. People had him as a top 10 prospect.
Same thing with Will Johnson, who went 47.
I think Will Johnson, by the way, has a chance to be the steal of the draft. That kid, when
that kid was
in 2023, that kid was flat out lockdown, man. I think he could be a really good player in the league if he's healthy.
If he's healthy, he does.
Yeah.
But the overriding point, which I've been talking about for years on this show, is the Eagles have built up a team and a culture where they can take chances that other teams don't feel like they can.
Yeah, right.
That's actually a positive thing.
That's definitely a positive.
But boy, man. Yeah. I was expecting the lunatics to be out on the political front. I was not expecting people to stick their head in the sand over injury issues for Jihad Campbell just because the Philadelphia Eagles took him. Doesn't change with whoever took them. They existed. They exist. The player admitted it. He had labrum surgery. Howie admitted it. The Eagles believe he'll be fine long term. Hopefully they're right.
It's the double for me, John. It's the plural that Breer used.
Well, I know.
For me,
both shoulders, both knees.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on this Tuesday edition, man. Great show today here on Birds 365.
That's my final thought, man. But for hero worship people, maybe expect less of sports stars. And if you want information on politics or deep societal issues, maybe seek out people better equipped to give you valuable information than expecting athletes to be your moral compass. Worry about them on the football field is what my advice would be.
Johnny Mac, great show, brother. We will catch you tomorrow on Birds 365. Maybe we will have some news on Jordan Davis. Maybe not. Maybe we'll wait till Thursday for that. Johnny Mac, great show, brother. I'll catch you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town. Give him a follow at JF McMullen on X. He'll keep you plugged in completely with everything that happens out in Philadelphia Eagles land. So great stuff there. Thought we had a great show today with two great guests. Ian Cummings, man, that guy can break down a draft class, can he? I thought he was excellent in the way he explained it. And I'll say one thing, the people are winning me over, and the player as well, because I was watching the tape as well. Andrew Makuba is, listen, if that dude stays healthy, I could see it now. I do see it. Obviously the concerns still exist in terms of size, but I agree. It's not the 2000s NFL. It's not 1995 anymore. So the game is played in space, and Makuba could be a good pick. So between Ian's breakdown, between you guys getting on my ass about him being undersized and watching some tape, I do think Makuba has a chance to be a good pick. So I thought that was excellent. How's everybody doing on this Tuesday? We got some stuff to address. Prince, don't you go anywhere now, Prince. All right? I need you in here, Prince. SMD, I need you in here. All right? Let's go. We got some stuff to talk about, and you guys might not like it, but we're going to talk about it, all right? Because I believe as adult human beings, we should be – no, Prince, you're not going anywhere. Prince, you're not going anywhere, and neither are you, SMD. Neither are you. We got some stuff to talk about. I believe as adults that we should be able to have a discussion. If you don't agree with me, that's perfectly fine. All right. Now we can do that. All right. We can do that. So I put up a tweet yesterday about Jalen Hurts and what I thought was one showing of a lack of leadership. And it didn't have anything to do with the president. I do not give a shit about the president. I don't give a shit about people's political beliefs. It has nothing to do with that. My take was more that the team was celebrated. All right. And I believe the leader of the team should have been there. Okay. I understand it's a complex thing. And people keep telling me, oh, Jalen could do what he wants. I know. Where did I say he couldn't do what he wants? I believe as the leader of the team, you are held, or you at least have a different obligation of responsibility. And it would have been nice to see Jalen Hurts up there. I mean, look, I know people hate Trump, and that's fine. I really don't care. You know, people act like I care. It's like, bro, 75 million people voted against him. There's also 75 million people that voted for him. I really don't care about that. It has nothing to do with the politics of it. All right. I just think Jalen, as the leader of the team, should have been there in that moment. I get it. It's a controversial take. Clearly, thing got like 200,000 views on Twitter. My Twitter notifications, look, haven't stopped in a day and a half. I got to mute the stupid Twitter account. All right. It's stupid. But I think he should have been there. I think it would have been a nice thing to see him up there. That's just my take on it. Again, SMD, the one thing I didn't like, and again, SMD, I respect you greatly, and it's just a difference of opinion. But, I really don't think I ever called him stupid. Like I saw you put that in the chat. Someone is, I think a decision is stupid is a lot different than saying, I don't think Jalen Hurts is a stupid person. I don't think Jalen Hurts is a bad leader. I don't. I thought this was one instance where I didn't agree with his decision. That's all I was saying. And, I think saying that I think he's stupid or Tom Brady is stupid, I think is a little bit too far. Like, I don't think Jalen Hurts is stupid at all. I think he's actually very smart. And I would have liked to see him up there. I understand that that's not popular. All right. I understand that that's not popular. I understand this very well after my Twitter got like 200,000 views and everybody's on my case trying to proclaim, what I think politically has nothing to do with it. What I think about his race has nothing to do with it. I just think as the leader, you got a different standard. Jalen Carter can blow it off. Nolan Smith can blow it off. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, blow it off. Jalen, I believe, and again, I'm going to take some comments on this too. So if you do disagree with me, I'm not brushing you off. All right. I'd like to talk to you. I'll take all the comments of the people who disagree with me. I'm perfectly good with that. Right. But I believe as the leader, you have a different responsibility, and you represent not only the guys who decided not to go, but the guys who did decide to go, right? Like there was 30 or whatever it was that went. Jalen is the leader of those guys too. And your team was presented on a world stage, and you are the leader. So I thought he should have been there. D. Cruz says you're ignorant. Listen, if you have a disagreement with me, that's fine. I don't think I'm ignorant. I think I've been very receptive to every side of it. All right. If you hate Trump, I think that's perfectly fine. If you wanted Trump to make that political stand, that's perfectly fine. I more would side with someone like John, or, I'm going to give a shout out to Lord Brunson, because me and him are going back and forth on Twitter about it. I thought his take was the best take of anybody that disagreed with me, because he said, for Tom Brady, for Jalen Hurts, for Saquon Barkley. And I'm not giving Brady a hall pass, race. I said very openly and publicly that was stupid. But he said, I think the same applies to all of them. Do what you want to do. I don't give a shit. I think that's fine. 90% of the pushback I got, though, didn't have to do with that. It had to do with Donald Trump. And I'm like, I didn't turn this into Donald. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Biden could be up there. Trump could be up there. Obama could be up there. Hillary could be up there. I don't care. It has nothing to do with that for me. It has zero to do with politics. That was my take on it. And I thought Lord Brunson's take was, again, the most rational of, I'm taking one stance that a player can choose what they want to do. I don't give a shit either way. That was similar to John McMullen's take too, So I have no issue with that. I have no issue with that take. Look at this guy. Eat a dick and go take a long walk off a bridge. Oh, you seem like a lovely, rational human being, right? I'm sure that your opinion on everything is right. Okay, brother? I'm not even saying I'm fucking right. All right. It's just my opinion on the matter. I'm willing to be changed. I'm willing to hear you out. So Dabney says, see, Zander, that's the thing. With this particular administration, it kind of is about Trump. I can't see how you. Well, I do see that part of it, but Dabney, so is your take that you should put your personal belief before before what the team is doing. Because if this is your take, then I would have liked to see Jalen stand up and say we shouldn't go to the White House at all. But Jeffrey Lurie did decide to take the team to the White House. So the team was represented yesterday. So if your take is, hey, Trump is so bad that Jalen's personal convictions outweigh his role as a leader, that's fine. I would disagree with you, but that's fine. You're entitled to that opinion. All right? You're entitled to that opinion. I support Saquon's and Hurts' decision. They are free men allowed to do what they want. I certainly agree with that. They're certainly allowed to do what they want. Nobody has ever said that. I think Jalen has a different obligation as a leader to the team. Prince says, Zander, I understand your perspective, but where I differ is that Sills had an excuse for Brady while criticizing Jalen seems unwarranted. I think that's bullshit. You got to criticize. I said it. You know, people were like, where was your tweet about Brady? I'm like, I was 19 at the time. I didn't make any football content. Forgive me if I don't have a public reference on Tom Brady. I think he was stupid too. Go to the damn White House. Lead the team. All right? So, no, I think Brady was out of line for it too. Again, and here's the other part about that part of it. Ready? Brady was a 7-time world champion and the greatest football player of all time. It doesn't matter as much as we think. Even if I have this take, it doesn't matter that much. Obviously, Brady was very successful as a leader and a quarterback while making those decisions. So I can see the difference of opinion. Absolutely. All right. I can see the difference of opinion. Absolutely. Devontae checks in. What's up, Devontae? I think Hurts should have went as well, but I'm not angry and butthurt like all these other people. You have crazy ass people saying they aren't buying the jerseys of the people that decide to go. No, I'm not in that boat. All right. I'm not in that boat. And in fact, I'll still support Hurts. I still think Hurts is a great player. I think he's the greatest quarterback to ever grace Philadelphia. I think what he has done for this city, no other player maybe has done what he's done in such a short period of time. Think about it, 4 years as a starter, and look at what Jalen Hurts has done for the city. I agree with that. I just thought he should have been there. Simple, right? It's not like there's all these people bringing in like, oh, you're a Trumpian. Like, nothing to do with it. You're a white guy. Nothing to do with it. Again, I understand the complex nature, but I just thought Jalen should have been there as a leader. That was it. That was my only take. I didn't realize it would go so in the other way. All right. That's called convictions. And Hurts has it. Hey, listen, Emirates, I'm perfectly good with that. But I do think as a leader, you're obligated to also the men who decided to go. And the people who decided not to go didn't have anything public yesterday that was being presented on the team that he led, right? You know, people say, well, he was the leader of the guys that didn't go too. That's true. But they didn't have a public showing yesterday, right? They decided to stay home. That's fine. They essentially didn't need a leader. The guys who did go public, I thought the leader could have been there for him. All right. I thought the leader could have been there for him. Crowley says, it has nothing to do with Trump, Zander. It was a team celebration. The leader of the team should have been there. These morons keep thinking it's about Trump, even as Biden was up there. It's a team. Crowley, I do happen to agree. SMD says, okay, so you did say it was stupid. I said the action. One specific instance of the action, SMD. I did not call the player stupid. I believe you insinuated, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you insinuated in the chat, forgive me, I was trying to do 3 things at once, show, talk, produce. I believe you said, I'm not going to say anybody is stupid. Like if a draft pick walked on the stage and slapped Roger Goodell in the face, you would say, hey, that was pretty stupid, right? Like I don't think that forbids me from saying I think something is stupid. Doesn't mean I think the player is stupid. I do get a kick out of this part of it too. You know, people keep saying, oh, it's a free country. I know. I'm free to opine on it. No, I can't have an opinion on the damn thing for crying out loud. Shit, man. Shit. You did. Nobody here did. None of this pushback happen with Brady. I think that's fair criticism of hypocrisy, Emrys. I believe Brady should have went too. All right. JD3 says, I think it's kind of silly that sports teams meet with presidents of any party. I wonder what JAKIB president made the rule that they had to pull up. Yeah, I think that's so heightened because of the hyper-partisan nature of the world we live in. You know, I think it used to be actually just a celebration of the teams that won. I mean, shoot, we're a country and sports teams that – sports is a big thing, man. Sports has a big impact. You know, I know it's largely inconsequential when you talk about, you know, real-world things. But sports has a big impact on cities, on teams, on players, on, you know, look at all you guys, right? We're in here every day. Look at, you know, people who have jobs. I have jobs. This is my dude. This is my living. This is John McMullen's living, Celia's living. I'm just a very small bucket of what's a very large picture of how much of an impact sports has. So I think it really used to be a celebration, and maybe this is where I'm missing it, where it has gotten away from that, and that's why it's a different arena now, for Jalen to make the decision that he did. Where I invited, I'd 100% go because it's not about Trump. It's about me being celebrated. I think it's about the team being celebrated as Birds. I'm with you on that. I am with you on that. Abe says, Xander, it's not like we don't have another chance at getting invited to the White House. We're making the Super Bowl and winning that shit again. Come on now. Yeah, but Abe, not every coach is going to be here. Not every player is going to be here again. Mekhi Becton was up on that stage. Again, I think it's a perfect world to assume that, hey, we're just going to go back and who cares? I do think that was a special moment for certain people, whether you like it or not. I mean, that doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me. Curtis says, Z, sucks that things are political that shouldn't be, but like it or not, the world does see it as political. That isn't Hertz's fault. I agree with that. And I think that's one of my big takeaways, from getting the pushback. I'm one of the people, the thing I don't like is people just make these huge proclamations about me as a person because of this take. Like I said, I liked what Lord Brunson had to say. Lord Brunson disagreed with me vehemently. He 100% disagreed with me. He didn't do it in a way like, oh, you're this dude because of that. No, he just said, I disagree with your take. I disagree with your opinion on this. I think that's pretty fun. Why do y'all act blindly with Trump? This has to do with Trump, whether you want to believe it or not. He is controversial, y'all. It is what it is. I think that's fair. I think that's been proven. All right. I think that's been proven. I think that's been proven for sure. I'll take a couple more comments on this, and then we'll close it up. Xander, in my opinion, Hertz's choice shows a lack of understanding, not leadership. Choosing sides, intentionally or not, can bring heat. It was optional, but choices have consequences. JH's choice comes with heat. I think that's a fair take. Bob Brown. Not a bad take by you. Why is it hard to believe people really fucking hate this administration? Emirates, it's not hard to believe at all. In fact, I see it. I mean, Emirates, again, I always say this, and I've said this on Xander Time consistently for weeks. Don't let people put you in a box. People try and put me in a box on this topic. You like Trump, so you think this. No. You're a white guy, so you can't make this take. No. I can understand the complexities of the conversation while still having an opinion on it. Again, it doesn't mean you got to agree with me. All right. I do see that. I do know this though. I have many friends, Emirates, who are on your side of the aisle politically. I don't view them as bad people because they don't agree with me politically. In fact, I thought what John said today was great. I'd rather have a good dude who disagrees with me politically than have a dude who agrees with me politically and is a scum of the earth human being. Right? I think that's far more important. Devontae gives me $5. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that, Devontae. Thank you, man. Prince says, Xander, we are in a divided time and politics fuels the fire. People say you should have gone. That is foolish. They don't understand the other half of it, although some do. I do see both sides, Prince. I do see both sides. I want to go to Devontae because I think he maybe meant to put this on his $5 super chat. Devontae, thanks. This might be why Jalen didn't want to go. Who knows? Hertz could love Trump, but he knows the backlash he would get and the support he would lose from a large part of his fan base. Yeah, here's the tough part about this part of it, Devontae, is I do think it was like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, look at the reaction of Jalen not going now, right? It's become, oh, look at who went, look at who didn't, like, right? It's become this huge polarizing thing. And if he did go, maybe it would have highlighted some of the people who didn't go. And maybe he was, I'll say this. Maybe that is where he showed leadership to the dudes who didn't go, right? Where he took the heat as the leader for the people who said, I'm not going to that administration's White House. Maybe that is a fair perspective on it. All right. A fair perspective on it. This guy says, you're a lapdog, Janet. HR, I don't think I'm a lapdog at all, brother. Clueless. You have no clue. Dude, can you add bro, all right, it's cool. You disagree. Can you add something of substance other than saying I'm a lapdog and calling me names? I'm clearly trying to bridge the gap between my opinion and your opinion. If you have no interest in that, then good, be gone. To thine own self be true. I respect Saquon for going and Jalen for not going. I have no issue with that take. Had nothing to do with politics for me. I just thought Jalen as the leader does have a different standard. Zander, change your diaper, low Trump. Okay, so this guy's proving that, there is a large section of the people who do not have any complexity or depth of thought. All right? No complexity or depth of thought. I'm a lapdog because I don't agree with him. You make football takes all day for a living. If you have one opinion that I don't agree with, you're a lapdog. Dude, shut up. Please. Give me something of substance. Give me something of substance. Give me something of substance that is real, okay? That makes sense. Again, I don't mind people who disagree with me. I'm not like, do you think I sit on a high horse and think my opinion is the only opinion that registers? No, Prince disagrees with me. SMD disagrees with me. Dank Bird Gang disagrees. Devontae disagrees. Plenty of people disagree with me. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. I see their points. Zoe says Xander got cooked on Twitter. I certainly did get cooked on Twitter. Hertz doesn't want to see that rapist. Zoe, he's entitled to that, I believe, as the leader that he should have put his personal stuff aside and went and let him. People made profiles just to come at you. I know, flexing. All right. I know, Flex. I appreciate the super, bro. Thank you, man. $10 super chat for my boy flexing and stepping. Thank you, Flex. Thank you, Flex. Josh B says, anyone who calls someone a lapdog is usually the actual lapdog that hasn't had an original thought. Don't be that person. I appreciate you, Josh B. I appreciate you, and I agree with you. All right. I'm not trying to lapdog for anyone or anything. All right. Look at this guy. Why are you A-track or tracks? Well, what's the matter, brother? All right, let's address with this guy. What's the real issue? Okay, it's not me. A-tracks. It's not me. I promise you, the real issue right now for you is not me. It's not. You are a brainless suck out. What is even that? What does that even mean? Come on, man. Are you ready to have a real conversation, or are you just going to chant from your high horse that it's your opinion and anybody else who doesn't agree with my opinion is a lapdog, a suck out, a brainless idiot, whatever the case may be? Come on, man. Come on, man. Have some complexity of thought. Let's go to Texas T, who I know disagreed with me as well. Again, don't have a problem with people disagreeing with me. I think that should be a thing of our world that comes back. Maybe makes a resurgence. Texas T, I think it's so simple, but people are making a big deal about it because they want to argue. I'm not sure 100% of teams go every year, no matter the sport. Well, Texas T, I do agree with that, but do you think Jalen, as the leader, does have a different set of obligations than your average player or any other player on the 53-man roster? Like, there was dudes who went yesterday. Jalen is the leader of those men too, right? So do you believe that there is, at the very least, as the leader, he does have a different set of obligations? Now, again, you might say he's got a different set of obligations, and one of those obligations has nothing to do with going to the White House. That's fine. That's a difference of opinion. But you can agree he does have a different set of obligations as the quarterback, as the leader, right? Can we agree on that? I appreciate Texas Tech. Nope, you don't think he has a different set of obligations as a leader? All right, I'll disagree with you on that. I disagree with you, Texas State. But again, I do appreciate it, and I don't think you're a bad person for disagreeing with me. I don't know why everybody goes down that route. It's fucking insane. Excuse my language. I really shouldn't. Theo says everyone has their own path in life. Our expectations are meaningless. Yeah, but Theo, I talk about football for a living all day, every day. All right. I'm literally on the air for 4+ hours a day talking about football. It is my job to have an opinion, dude. It's my job. Like, if I just sit up here and said, I have no expectations for anybody because they don't matter, then we wouldn't have a show. I wouldn't have a channel. Birds 365 wouldn't exist. The National Football Show wouldn't exist. And I'd be working at Walmart. I think there's a little bit more depth to it than that. No, I did not get a new mic. Not yet. I got to get one though. A-Trax is going hard on Z. Has he made a good point yet though? Xander, you're a certified sucker. That's all he's got. That's all he's got. Again, I'm cool to hear differing opinions, but calling me a suck out over and over again doesn't really tell me that you have any complexity of thought. In fact, it might tell me your IQ is very low. Zander, you're giving us too much time now. Melissa, I love the time I give everybody over here, man. It's part of what I do. All right. Part of what I do. Part of what I do. Here, let's go to D Cruz, who disagrees with me. You're just ignorant, not a lapdog. It's obvious you're a chud, bro. Kind of go. You please educate yourself and try to understand a man's perspective before criticizing him. Well, D Cruz, why don't you do the same, brother? Aren't you not educating yourself and trying to and not understanding my perspective? Am I entitled to a perspective, D Cruz? Or no? If you point out my ignorance, I will read your comment. Big Sill says, missed a chance to go to Arlington National Cemetery. It hurts. That's part of it as well. What the F is a suck out? I have no idea. SMD, I got no clue. Bruce says, stop insulting Zander. He's our guy, and this is the best place. That's all right, Bruce. Hey, listen, Bruce, part of what I do is make an opinion. I do not believe that my opinion should be received and accepted by everybody. All right? I won't put myself on that high horse. I will not put myself on that high horse. My opinion is just that. It's my opinion. Not everybody's got to agree with it. Z, I bet you would be great at Walmart. You could sell a ketchup popsicle to a lady wearing white gloves. That's pretty funny, Rich. I would definitely be a damn good Walmart employee. No doubt about it. I've always been a good employee everywhere I've been. Dominique says, Zander, honestly, this is truly unique administration, man. For this particular situation and particular administration, you can't criticize if someone does or doesn't want to go. I'm fine with that take, Dominique. You jumped Hurts and we got it. I jumped Hurts. I jumped Hurts because I said, Jalen Hurts might have 100 or 1,000 instances a year that we can discuss on the football field, as a leader, as a community man, as a guy in Philly, as now a media mogul who's all over Time Magazine. He can have 1,000 instances of things that we can discuss. If I gave 999 of them praise and one wrong, I jumped Hurts? What? Come on, brother. Come on, man. That doesn't make sense, bro. That's really, I like people who disagree with me. I have no problem with that. I think there's a large portion of people who disagree and just want me to step in line. It's like, dude, we got a different opinion. I mean, how many people do you know in your life? How many people do you hang out with in your life? How many people do you talk to on a day-to-day basis that you don't agree with on everything? Welcome to the real world. Yeah, thank you, Cody. But again, I said one instance of bad leadership, so I'm not a fan of him. Now people are shitting on Barkley, so predicted. This is about Trump hating. Hurts is not a leader. Sills, I knew you would take that. I knew you would go down that. This guy. Now he's giving me praise. You are the biggest lapdog suck out in America. Now I'm big enough to be the biggest suck out that exists in the country. How about that, everybody? Now that is a high honor. Okay? The number one in the country. Holy shit, baby. Woo! Holy moly. You got to be kidding me. Fly Eagle says, Zander, you say all the time that you don't like being told what to do. Absolutely. But I also understand that as a leader, you do have things that will come up that you might have to put the team, the entity, whatever it is you lead first before you put your personal convictions. That's part of being a leader. Again, I don't have to like it. Jalen might not have liked going to the White. I'm not asking him to like it. But as a leader, I believe that he should have went. Let's go to some super chats here. This guy has become hilarious. You can suck a watermelon through a straw, Zander. Suck out. I love that. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you, man, for being here. Brian Pumper. Don't think it's just a Hurts thing. Clutch Sports is behind this 100%. LeBron, Ramon, James is the enemy. He cooks Stephen A., but not Kevin Gates, SMH. Leave it to Pump to have an interesting take. Pump, I love you, brother. Devontae checks in. Appreciate Devontae, who I think has had some really good rational thoughts here. Anyway, guys, how about that undrafted free agent Malik Carr? Dude is a 6'6" tight end, 265, ran a 4.6. I think he makes the team. Check his tape. I'm going to watch his tape because his name came up today. Johnny Mack got a kick out of his name being mentioned. Hashtag Trump 2028. I don't care to make a political stance on this right now. Z, I don't always agree with your opinions, but I respect your point of view. I appreciate that, Theo. I think that's what makes the world turn, brother. I think that's what makes the world turn. This is just hilarious. You can suck a watermelon through a straw. Woo! The biggest suck out in the country. That's a high honor. That's a high honor, baby. All right. James Jones says, I agree with you. You're my boy, Jan. Thanks, James. But it's not about you agreeing with me. I really don't. My whole point in this is not to get people to agree with me. If you do, that's cool. But it was just to make a take, just to make an opinion. I had an opinion on it. I put it out there. People evidently can't handle it too well. All right. Let me load up the Twitter. You guys want to see the Twitter? It's so funny. I mean, my Twitter has not stopped blowing up. What are we up to? View count. Let's look at the view count. Let's check it out. 369,000 views on Twitter of people crying. Holy mackerel. 369,000. This thing is taking on a new life. Holy moly. He called you Kanye West, Xander. Good Lord. He's got all sorts of opinions on me. It's all good, man. It's all good. I think real people, real rational people can see that it's just a debate, it's just a discussion. There's multiple sides to it. I'm not acting like Jalen Hurts is enemy number one in Philly. I thought one thing happened with the team, and I thought the quarterback should have went. He decided to not go. He's entitled to that decision. I'm entitled to opine on it. All right. When the name calling starts, argument is lost. Theo, I try not to call people names. All right. SMD says, what did you say on Twitter? I'll read you it. All right. I'll read you my post on Twitter. All right. It's basically what I said here, SMD. It's the same thing. I just think Jalen should have went. I don't think it's about the politics of it. I said, today was a terrible showing of leadership from Jalen Hurts. The White House visit isn't about politics. It's about honoring the team, the work, the journey, the accomplishment that they achieved together. It's a once-in-a-lifetime moment for a lot of players and coaches, and it represents something bigger than any individual belief. When you choose not to show up for that, you're not just skipping a photo op, you're putting your personal feelings ahead of the team. Leaders don't do that. I don't care if you love the president, hate the president, or couldn't care less about politics. It's not about who's in the office. It's about respecting the team, the moment, and the tradition. If Jalen Hurts truly saw himself as a leader of the team, he would have been there, plain and simple. Instead, he skipped it and then tried to cover it up with scheduling conflict. That's not leadership. Leaders are honest. Leaders stand on what they believe. If you're going to make a decision like this, at least own it. Philly fans don't need to agree with you politically, but they will always respect you for being real. What makes it worse is that it put a cloud over what should have been a purely celebratory moment. It turned a team honor into a headline about who did or didn't show up. And that's the kind of unnecessary distraction true leaders should prevent, not create. Jalen Hurts had a chance to set the tone that winning, brotherhood, and team matter more than personal politics. He didn't do that. And that's not just disappointing, but it's a reflection of where his priorities were in that moment. Leadership is about sacrifice. It's about putting yourself second. Today, Jalen Hurts put himself first. So, yeah, that's what I tweeted out. And boy, did it invoke a reaction. Boy, did it invoke a reaction. All right. I think Xander is focused on how it should be. I agree with how it should be, but then there's just how it is. Curtis, that's a great take. That's a great take. It's a great take. Philly Dot Sanders, just keep doing you. It's all good, man. Look, I don't care that people bash me personally. I really don't care. Zoe says, terrible showing of leadership. I promise you, Xander, no one will care. Well, tell Zoe, again, I make opinions on sports, okay? I talk about the Eagles legitimately all day, every day for a living. It's what I do day in and day out, morning, noon, and night for 16 plus hours every single day. Zoe, do you just want me to not have an opinion if the opinion doesn't align with yours? Or do you just want to say you disagree? If you disagree, again, fine. Okay. All good. We can disagree, man. Xander, you wrote an entire dissertation. Is that a dissertation? It's called X. Twitter was for communist. LOL. Whatever. Don't care. I disagree with that, Xander. That's all right, Prince. Agree to disagree. Oof, not going to lie, Z. That sounded like an attack. I thought it was a failure of leadership in that moment. If you take it as an attack, it's not an attack on him. It's one moment of bad leadership. Again, there's 1,000 moments of an instance or 1,000 instances of Jalen Hurts on the field, off the field, leadership, public, personal, everything that you can talk about. This has been the first thing I've said I don't agree with what he did. It's not an attack. It's not an attack. I mean, come on, man. Not an attack. I'm not attacking him. All right, some funny stuff in here. Z, it's a no-win battle. I do see that. All right. Flexen says, I stand with Big Z. Thanks, bro. It ain't about that. I'm just happy you got some complexity of thought to you, bro. Dakota says, what a fucking tweet, Xander. See, some people like it, some people don't. It's all good. It's all good. Again, I'm not begging you to agree with me. I really don't care. I'm not self-righteous enough to believe that you have to agree with all of my opinions. SMB says, that's your opinion and you're entitled to it. Again, I would have gone, but I'm not going to call him a bad leader of the football team. Same as Brad. I don't think he's a bad leader. I think it was one moment of bad leadership. That's all. I don't think it makes him a bad leader. Right? In fact, it's the first thing I've ever seen in Jalen Hurts' career, starting from when he became in the public eye, which I was at, by the way, his first game ever in the public eye in college, in Jerry's World, Alabama versus USC. Wasn't even supposed to start that game. It's the first thing in 8 or 9 years of a public career where I thought Jalen Hurts made the wrong decision as a leader. The first time in 9 years. I think that's pretty impressive for him. I think that's pretty impressive. You know, I really think that's pretty impressive. But again, I'm not just going to get in line, you know, because people don't agree with it. Hurts is more important than Trump. He certainly is to this football team, member. There's no doubt. D. Cruz checks in. Opinions aren't equal. Trump deports people to concentration camps. Real leadership is not showing up. Being indifferent to evil isn't respectable. Look at the pictures. Your post was terrible. I appreciate you sharing your differing opinion. Dank, I disagree. No problem. No disrespect to Z. Appreciate you, bro. All right. Appreciate you. I have no do in the fight. I'm here for the entertainment value while I bake. That's pretty funny. All right. Enjoy. Enjoy whatever it is you're up to. All right. Enjoy it. Your post supports right-wing assholes. Has nothing to do with politics. Don't give a shit what your politics are. Don't care people that like Trump. Don't care people that hate Trump. Literally do not care. 75 million voted against. 75 million voted for. It's clearly a divided issue. Don't you see this? Don't you see this? It's nothing to do with Trump. Could not care less about Trump. Nothing. Zero. Zip. Zilch. In my opinion about Trump. But I understand that people have made it bigger. You can't take the heat, Xander. Apologize to Jalen today. Bitch, I ain't going to do anything that you tell me to do. I'm going to do what I want. All right? And that's make an opinion. If you don't like it, so be it. Just like Jalen Hurts can say to me, I don't give a fuck what you think. He's entitled to that too. This guy says, I would not celebrate with Hitler or Mussolini. Okay. Well, I don't think Trump is Hitler or Mussolini. All right. Two of the most murderous dictators in the history of all of mankind. But I digress. Your post is uglier than your mug. Yeah, keep looking at it, big guy. Keep looking at it. I'm not going to lie. I was quite jealous seeing Saquon hop off Marine One. I do think that was cool. I think it's different, though, you know, SMD. Like, because people, I understand this. People would say, hey, you're a hypocrite. You know, you told Saquon or told people to stop being mad at Saquon. You know, what's the difference with Jalen? Well, the Saquon riding on whatever, Marine One yesterday and all the things, that's like Jalen golfing with Obama to me. Okay, what the fuck cares what I think of that? It's their personal life. They can do whatever they want. The team, yesterday was a team thing, right? It wasn't like Saquon didn't go to the White House on his own time. Well, he did, but that's what I'm not criticizing. The team went to the White House yesterday. All right, I'm done with this topic. I'm done. I'm done with it. I've given my piece. I've given my piece. For the people who disagree and can at least respect a differing opinion, I appreciate you. For the people who think I'm a suck out, all good. All good. I encourage you to talk to some people. Eagletron, Big Z, I agree with your take. I was disappointed in the players that were no-shows. They're representing their fans to the world, good, bad, or indifferent. SMD says Xander's not ugly. Thanks, SMD. I appreciate that. Stay in your white lane. Okay, so I'm a white guy, so I can't have an opinion on anything. Imagine if I told you that. R-Trax, imagine if I told you that. Let's point out. You want to see hypocrisy? Let's point out hypocrisy. What if I told you that, R-Trax? You're not white, so you can't have an opinion. What does that make me? What does that make me? Come on, man. Elevate the conversation. Real Zeal, checking in. Jalen should have went because he disagrees with Trump. You have to show up in a conversation with people you don't agree with. If not, truly, we are doomed as society. Kind of trying to be what I'm doing here. I'm trying to have the conversation. I'm not mad. I don't care that people don't agree with me. You know, again, I told you, I brought up Lord Brunson. I give him a lot of credit. I think his channel is awesome. I think he's a great content creator. He disagreed with me vehemently. I think that's fine. I think he's entitled to that belief. He's certainly entitled to that belief. And I thought he defended his belief well. I thought he defended it well. Let me make sure I got all my super chats. And just a shame we couldn't watch Biden stutter through the names for 2 hours reading a prompt. You can't say that's pretty funny. Again, not going political, though. It's not about the guy in the White House to me. All right. Lots of testosterone missing. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, everybody. You want to talk about the draft, or you want me to end Xander time now? Is everybody's panties two in a bunch? All right. Can we all acknowledge it's just one opinion and we can continue to move on? Or should we wrap this up? Should I end the channel, end the show, end everything? Oh, my God, delete my Twitter. Oh, my God. People disagree. Oh. All right, should we wrap it up? Let's wrap this sucker up. Wrap it up. Wrap it up here. You know you want to kick it with us there. Edward, I love kicking it with you guys, man. I love kicking it with you guys. And Reyes says JAKIB strike. No, Reyes. Don't do it to me, Reyes. See, I love Reyes because me and Reyes disagree about a lot of shit. We agree about a lot of shit, but he's a good dude, man. He makes sense. He's willing to discuss and learn the difference. Or at least accept that there's difference in opinions. And Reyes thinks Jalen Hurts is God for skipping the White House. It's all good. It's all good. All good. Fly Eagle says, no, I don't reach the threshold to make money on X, unfortunately. So I'm not making a single dollar on that post for the people that think I'm profiting on it. Fly Eagle says, Z, we're like a big family. We fight, but we'll all be at the dinner table tonight breaking bread. Thanks for all you do. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Xander versus the people of JAKIB. No, Fredo. I'm not putting myself between me and my people. We just got a difference of opinion. That's all. Kyle says, Xander, I'm getting sick and tired of these people talking about Hitler because of my late grandfather who survived Nazi Germany. Kyle, I can understand why that would upset you greatly. I can understand, Kyle, why that would upset you greatly. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate your super chat. All right. Prince, Prince. I know you hate when I go, buttercup talk, I guess you could call it. But I love you, Prince. I love the way you agree with shit or you disagree with shit. All right. I think you do it the right way, Prince. He says, I genuinely want to meet some of you guys to check your temperature. LOL. That's great, man. That is great. Xander, the face of Suck Out America. That's me. I am that guy. I am that guy. All right. I am that guy. All of us can agree that we agree on more than we disagree. I am right. That's the thing I think most people forget. I tried to say it to somebody last night, There's a girl, I'm blanking on her name. I'd like to get her name right because she does have a platform. She's pretty good. Real Key, I think it is. Real Key Eagles. Let me look it up. Yeah, I just felt like she got so combative with me. Like, we're waiting. I'm like, I'm not trying to fight with you, man. Like, we probably have a lot more in common than we have disagreements. Most of us. All right? Most of us. Most of us. Holy shit, this Twitter thing just won't die, huh? I can't even look at my phone and fucking this is bombarded with notifications. All right. I'm gonna try to use that word that they suck at. SMD. I don't see the application. All right. Devontae checking in. You would think men who have secured millions in generational wealth off the backs of fans in America while playing a sport would be more patriotic. Well, that's a whole nother conversation, Devontae. I'm almost not ready to go down that road because of. Let's just let this simmer down for a second. All right, these people are. I don't think Devontae. You know what I call that? Elevating the conversation to at least understanding the complexities of thought between different human beings and their perspectives. I don't know if everybody's ready for that. A lot of people watching on my Twitter, which is interesting. You know, a lot of people watching over on my Twitter. Let me get a couple more comments and then we're done. This guy's relentless. You got to give him credit. He's at least relentless. He decided to stay here for what? 40? We're 44 minutes into Zander time. My guy's still calling me a suck ass 44 minutes later. I can over tip of the cap. All right. It's a tip of the cap from me. It's a tip of the cap from me. Hertz was assisting efforts to reconstruct the Bikini Atoll after intense storms. 405 kV. Is that what the Twitter's up to? Hilarious. That's hilarious. Let's get that sucker to 1 million. Let's get that sucker to 1 million. All right, everybody. What are we thinking of the draft? All right, what do you guys think of let's talk JAKIB Campbell for a little bit. All right, I got to go at 11 here. I got some stuff to tend to, but let's talk JAKIB Campbell. What's your guys' level of concern on those injuries? All right. People brought up JAKIB Campbell's injuries, the 2 shoulders, 2 knees. I think that's a little concerning. No, I mean, look, I'll say this. I trust the Eagles staff more than John does. I think the staff would obviously have to check out on that. And if they did, then I feel much better about it. But, I just wonder, I think we need an impact player in year 1, man. I think we need an impact player in year 1. I'm hoping he can be that. Emre says, is it confirmed dual shoulders, dual knees? I just heard it was one of each. So the wording, Emre, I'm not going to lie to you, the wording was a little off. John seemed to think that, yes, it was both shoulders and both knees. Let me read you the Albert Breer report so you can kind of make up your mind on it and see what you think. Let me find the tweet. Give me 1 sec. Let me find the tweet. Let me pull up John McMullen. Go. Where is this thing? All right, so here it is. Albert Breer, and this is a quote. All right, so make of this what you will. Emre, I'm curious to hear what you think of it. Emre, Albert Breer, quote, I'd say Howie Roseman's first-round pick this year, Alabama linebacker JAKIB Campbell, is a little like 2 years ago with Jalen Carter. In both cases, there was a reason why the guy was available. With Carter, it was checkered off-field history that Philly felt well-equipped to manage. By the way, terrible comp. With Campbell, it's his shoulders and knees. Yes, plural on both counts. So there's the sentence. With Campbell, it's his shoulders and knees. Yes, comma, plural on both counts. And again, this is one where the Eagles are more equipped to take on the risk than others because they don't need to pick to hit. So, to me, that sounds like both, right? Plural on both counts, shoulders and knees. Sounds like both shoulders and both knees. I don't know the severity in each shoulder or in each knee, but Emre says, I don't know, Emre. To me, it sounds like both, you know. I don't know what to make of it too much. Kimbo says, still concerned about the injuries, i.e. Nakobe. Yeah, I don't know when Nakobe's going to be ready, Kimbo's. I'm not sure when he's going to be ready. I'll say this. John did give me a little bit of confidence in Nakobe returning. You know, we talked about how he was much ahead of schedule. He was walking already at the Super Bowl with obviously the injury coming just a couple weeks prior. So I think Nakobe will be back. I'm going to put the latest on Nakobe at like week 4. You know, week 4. Week 4. But we'll see. We'll see. You guys remember this guy, Luke's dad? He's checking in from Twitter. He calls me the cracker of the day. So he's got nothing to add to the conversation. Remember this guy when he cried because he was shitting on Cilio in his chat, and then Cilio clapped back at him like people should if people shit on you. And then he like, made a stink. I'm canceling Jacob. I hate Jacob. I hate this channel. I got blocked. I went on Twitter crying about how we're the worst channel in the world. Remember this guy? That's a classic guy right there. Yo, Luke's. Appreciate you still watching, brother. It's a couple months later and you're still locked in. A couple months later. I call that a Jacob W. I call that a W. Thank you, Luke's dad. Kimbo says, do you think we are keeping Nakobe? Not after his contract, I won't lie. I don't think they pay him. I don't think they pay him after his contract. SMD. Cracker of the day. Okay, that's enough internet for me today. Texas T checking in. If Mondon is ready, him, Ball, and Trotter can hold it down until Campbell and Dean are ready. I agree with that. And I think Mondon's going to be pretty good. Obviously, played his college ball at Georgia, was a pretty good player there. So, I do kind of think he was the insurance policy on Dean, not so much Campbell. Like I do agree with John where I think they're trying to use Campbell as a lot more than an off-ball linebacker. Now, maybe it doesn't work, but like to me, I think Smile Mondon was more of a insurance on Dean than Jihad Campbell was. But I could see both sides. She says if Mondon's ready, him, Bond, and Trotter can hold it down until Campbell and Dean are ready. I agree with that. I definitely agree with obviously Bond is a big one being back there, secures that position pretty good. And you got Nakobe, who will probably, I'd say, return week 4. And then you got Mondon. I just don't know, like, how ready is Mondon going to be in year 1? I don't know. We'll see. I'm not going down the Trump road anymore. Done with the politics, guys. Let's move on. All right. I've said my piece on it. All right. I think I've explained myself. I've taken some pushback. I've read some comments of people that didn't agree. I respect your guys' different opinions, and let's move on. All right. Go take a walk, low IQ dumbass. T. Cruz, thanks for the super chat a little bit earlier. Let's move on, brother. Let's move on. All right. Let's move on. Brian Pumper checks in with the super chat. Thanks, Brian. Z, make sure you reiterate to Johnny Mack that we drafted the next Fred Warner. Dude be crying because the Vikings drafted a guard at 24. Who's the next Fred Warner? You think Jihad Campbell is? Jihad Campbell would be a huge upside for him. I don't know if he's going to be used that way though, Pump. I don't know if he's going to be. You think Campbell's used like Warner? Warner's the best off-ball linebacker in football. So, Michael G says, per Fran Duffy of PHOI, he does great work. Campbell is a better pass rusher than an outside linebacker. I'll tell you what, I'm a Bama fan, Michael G, and I watched him every Saturday. He was a damn good linebacker too. So maybe he's a better outside linebacker, better pass rusher, but man, he was a damn good off-ball linebacker in college. I mean, some of the tape you watch on him, he was all over the place, man. All over the place. Like a Cooper DeJean at linebacker type thing, where like he just flew to the ball. Like you couldn't believe how quick he got to the ball in some place. J-Mac is hell-bent on him not playing linebacker. Yeah, well, to be fair, Melissa, J-Mac talked to Howie after, and Howie's like, this guy's not, basically said he's not going to be an off-ball linebacker. Basically pointed to what Micah Parsons became, basically pointed to what, Abdul Carter did at Penn State, and kind of likened that to Jahad Campbell. I do think that would insinuate that they're not trying to use him as an off-ball linebacker. SMD says, love you, Xander. Thanks for respecting everyone's opinions. I respect your opinions as well. Take care. SMD, take care, man. I appreciate that. SMD, I love you too. I appreciate you. And I absolutely do respect your opinion, even if it's different than mine. Midnight Lexicon, that's what I was thinking, Big Z, like a DeJean. Yeah, he flies around the field, man. He flies around the field. There's no doubt about it. I'm really curious. The other thing with the defensive players that I think we all have this feeling, maybe this is something we can all agree on today. I think we all feel a lot better because Vic Fangio is our defensive coordinator. Like, I think we all inherently trust that Vic Fangio is going to, at the very least, give us the best chance to get the most out of these players. And I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to say. All right. By the way, I was listening to Vic Fangio on Josh Shapiro's podcast or whatever it was, the governor of Pennsylvania. And it was dope. I mean, he legitimately said, I started my career in Philly and I'm going to end my career in Philly. Like, he basically told us, yeah, he's going to retire in Philly. I don't know what that means in terms of length. Will he coach 3 more years, 5 more years, 8 more years? I don't know. How old is Vic? But I thought that was pretty cool to hear him say, like, he would like to end his career in Philly. He is 66. 66 for Vic Fangio. So, I don't know, man. Andy Reid, 67. How long you guys think Vic Fangio goes, man? I'm not sure. Prince says, I hope you all realize that every player that they drafted on defense were all instinctive players. Prince, they absolutely were. Dude, I said that to Ian today when we had him on. By the way, great interview with Ian, man. That dude's good. I really like him. But I said that in the middle of the interview. I'm like, as he's breaking down, he literally broke down our top 5 picks, which were 5 straight defensive guys. Didn't take that first offensive player till the 6th pick of the draft in the 5th round. I'm like, dude, there's a trend here. Clearly a trend on the defensive guys that they're going for. And I happen to think that Vic Fangio has some say in that trend, right? So Vic is like 92. Nah, 66, but I hear you. Xander, consider who Vic had coached before. I see Campbell being a Van Ginkel, Khalil Mack type player. It's a good comp. Definitely Van Ginkel. All right. Definitely Van Ginkel. Man, Prince, this is where I 100% agree with you, bro, that there's no W here. Like, Prince, of all the opinions I take, I wish I went with a different opinion about a different topic, because this is just clearly, I mean, people are just incapable of having a conversation. I mean, it's just crazy. Let's look at the chat right now. Look, are you the guest speaker at the next KKK meeting? What a ridiculous take, bro. What a dumb take, bro. That's insulting. It's just stupid. Cedric checks in. All love, Xander. We're all good people who happen to disagree on something small. The big picture is you are a good guy. Well, I appreciate that. It's not about me asking you to think I'm a good guy, but I do think that's a part of it. People love to clump you. What I always say, don't let people put you into a box, man. People will put you into a box if you let them. Don't let them put you into the box that they want you to be in. Michael G says, the possibility of Campbell and Bond on the field at the same time gives Vic so many options. Imagine a QB not knowing which one is rushing and or in coverage. I do agree with that. That's where the beauty of Vic is going to come in with these players and the versatility that they have. Even the versatility of, Andrew Makuba has been interesting to listen about. Interesting to hear about, So I'm super pumped, man. I'm super pumped to see what Vic does with these people. I'm super pumped. Juan says, maybe just stay out of the politics. Yeah, I guess I will, Juan. But Juan, I will at the end of the day. I do, like I said, I do a football show 4 or 5 hours a day, bro. All right. I comment on the Philadelphia Eagles, not on politics. The Eagles were at the White House yesterday, which was a fusion of the two worlds. I had to take on it. You brought out the crazies unintentionally. Really didn't mean to, but maybe I underestimated what we think. Cedric says, Zander, who do you think is the starting front seven when the Eagles are fully healthy? I think it's going to be a Jomo. I do think a Jomo is going to be the starter. A Jomo, Carter, Nolan Smith. Who's the opposite edge? Is it Campbell? Not going to be Bryce Hufflepuff. Could be Jalix Hunt. Jalix Hunt? Jordan Davis in the middle there. And you got Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond. Nakobe Dean, Zach Bond, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Mora with Jomo, Nolan Smith, and I might lean Jalix Hunt. I'd probably say you said because of the question you asked, which is when the Eagles are fully healthy. Let's assume Jahad Campbell is fully healthy. I'm going to put Jahad Campbell out there over Jalix Hunt. All right, I'm going to put Jahad Campbell out there over Jalix Hunt. And then I think Hunt is a rotational piece on the edge. I think we're going to do anything with Trotter. I don't know. We'll see. All right, we'll see. Texas T says, do you think all the holes are filled now? No, I don't. Well, I think you addressed Texas T for the most part, but saying the holes are filled is an assumption that every player we drafted is going to pan out. But I do think at the very least, Texas T, you got bodies everywhere. Like safety, you brought in Makuba. Cornerback, maybe Adoree Jackson is the hole, is the fill for the hole of Slay and Isaiah being gone. Maybe they have confidence that Keeley or Eli Ricks could be that swing role. And then if either Ringo or Adoree Jackson wins the starting cornerback 2 job, maybe you feel better about that depth because it drops one of them back in there. Maybe that hole is filled. Safety, you filled the hole. Obviously, you brought in Makuba. The player still has to pan out. You lost Milton Williams. You brought in Ty Robinson. I think that hole has clearly been addressed. The edge, you lost Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat. I think obviously you brought in the, Uche Ojulari. I think even in a way, Jahad Campbell contributes to that hole being filled. I think that's pretty good. The right guard, I mean, do I need to address that? We got like 14 offensive linemen battling it out right now in the depth. So maybe the holes aren't all filled, but at the very least, I do believe that the bodies are there. She says, you don't believe in Ojulari or Uche. I'm not saying I don't believe in them. I just don't know what they're going to be yet, I like Uche a little bit more than Ojulari. Other people seem to like Ojulari more, but we'll see. It's 11 a.m., Zander. End this. I got to work. Prince, I'm out of here. My biggest concern now is cornerback. Yeah, Kyle, I'm kind of with you. Melissa says, Z, you got to acknowledge Baum was wasted in New Orleans, only being used as a rusher. Yeah, well, that's a coaching thing, man. That's a coaching thing for sure. All right, that's a coaching thing. Zander, I have a feeling Jalis would outdo Nolan Smith due to injuries. That's an interesting take, Abe. I think Jalix, there's a couple people who've been super high on Jalix Hunt from the start. I think Joe Whipp was one of them. A couple other people, but he clearly looked really good late in the year last year. Like if you turn on our late year tape and just watch Jalix Hunt, I mean, he is a freaking beast, man. I mean, he was shaking and baking late in the year last year once he found his rhythm. The biggest steal was Williams. 2 years at Stoutland U, and he's going to be ready to take over for Lane. He's going to be a swing tackle by 26. Listen, I hope you're right, SC Birds. I was happy to hear Ian Cummings because I said that, if you guys remember, for those who consumed our draft coverage, right after the pick was made, I said, this is a guy who I felt would have went day 2 if he stayed in college another year. He came out after only 1 year starting after his junior season. And I'm like, this guy probably would have went day 2 if he stayed in school. He didn't stay in school. Now he's in Philly. I think it's a good situation for the Birds. This Howie we talking about, he definitely might trade for a corner. Lord Vaughn, there's no doubt that the acquisition season is not over. Drozone, what's up, bro? You missed a good one today, man. He says, I'm so hyped I didn't fully miss the show. You missed a good one. Cyan says, you're putting Jalen in a box. He's a bad leader because he didn't go to the White House. No. Didn't call him a bad leader. Said one instance of bad leadership. One instance of bad leadership I disagree with. Very different. Two very different things. Very different things. I can think somebody is a smart person that makes a dumb comment from time to time, right? Like Prince. I think Prince is a smart dude. I think he makes stupid comments sometimes. All right? Doesn't mean I think Prince is stupid. Thinks that one comment is stupid. One instance of Jalen I thought was dumb. Dude, you commented on it. I've been off the subject, but he brought it back around. Well, I addressed your comment. Sorry, I won't address your comments anymore, Cyan. Put you on the shit list. I'll block you from the channel and we can move on with our life. Love Nolan. He'll be good. We wouldn't have won the Super Bowl without him. I agree with that. He had an excellent playoffs, an excellent end of the year. Really good. Really came on. Shady says, I'll say it again. In my opinion, Hunt will have a better career than Nolan. We will see what happens. All right, everybody. I'm out of here. Good show. Appreciate all you guys for elevating the conversation. I did think we had some good takes in here. Even people that agree, disagree. It's all good. All right. I appreciate people who disagree and can at least see the complexity and why people disagree. All right. So I appreciate that. For the people who are dumb and want to, again, call me names or put me in things, so be it. I hope you find some peace in your life. All right. And good stuff, everybody. Xander, Prince, I just had to use your Prince. You're polarizing. Everybody knows you, Prince. Everybody knows you, Prince. All right. Have a good one. Thanks, guys. All right. I see you all next time. Love all you guys. Stay tuned on the channel. We'll have plenty of content. I might even post up Xander time today because I do want people to hear my reaction to the big the outrage that I've sparked on Twitter, which really was not intentional. I just wanted to put my opinion out there. So we'll do that. Appreciate all you guys for being here. Love all you folks. See you next time, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.